It's been a wee while since we've done this. I think I had to go back to 2020 around the time when the pandemic had kicked off. The last time that I dedicated a vPub to talking about value. There's a reason that I've not done it a lot since then, and I'll talk about that when we kick things off tonight. But I thought what I would try and focus on tonight is to try and celebrate some of the producers out there that, despite everything that's happened over the course of the last 4 or 5 years in whiskey specifically, in terms of pricing and everything, there are some producers out there that continue to bring fantastic value. So rather than focus on the negative stuff tonight, I'm going to try my best to focus on the positive stuff and try and uncover where we can still find some good value in whiskey in 2024. Looking forward to it, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. How are we all? I've got a wee confession to make. I've been busy watching the football here. I think we'll just kill that so it's not a distraction for tonight. But it's been fun to have international football back in the house over the last few days. Not always fun, but ups and downs. Good fun. Good stuff to watch. Anyway, how are we all? I hope you're all doing very well, wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another wee Thursday night of whiskey indulgence, whiskey downtime. Just spending a couple hours focusing on the things that we love about whiskey and trying to uncover tonight specifically some of the things that are kind of bucking the price trends right now, despite all the challenges that we're seeing about cost of living and rising prices and blah blah. It's very, very, very prevalent in whiskey. Despite all of that, there are some products and some producers out there that are bringing us some things that are against the tide. You would expect, or pleasant surprises is probably a good way to put it, right? Some producers that are doing good things. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring back something I used to do fairly regularly in the vPub, to the point that I actually dedicated 2 or 3 or more vPubs to it back in the early days of the vPub. I would literally have sat down and poured through all the prices of most of the core range stuff and try and uncover where things were better value, things that were a wee bit under the radar in terms of price versus engagement in the glass. And through doing that exercise back then, we were able to uncover some really quite cracking little bottles of whiskey. What's happened since then, and the reason that I've moved away from that, is because I don't like the vPub being about negative topics. Finding a value is a positive thing, of course it is. But what happened round about 2020 is that the prices of whiskey really started to climb and climb and climb, to the point that every single topic that I was introducing into the vPub on whatever week it may be, price was intrinsic. It was part of it. And it wasn't a positive part of it. So it became difficult to avoid talking about price. And the idea of dedicating an entire vPub to talking about prices in whiskey seemed a wee bit redundant. Things have moved on since then. And like I say, I've been inspired to bring you this vPub and bring back this topic because there are 1 or 2 producers out there that are standing up and saying, wait a minute, we hear you, we see this, it doesn't have to be this way, here's a product that might fit. Those are the producers that I would like to focus on tonight. Those are the whiskies I would like to focus on tonight. So what we'll do is we'll go through some core range. In fact, I've got a wee list here to help me tonight. It's not often I do these, but it's nice when I do. It keeps me on track a wee bit better. We'll go through some core releases from distillery official bottlings. We'll go through some new releases, some cask strength versions. We'll go into independent bottlings. Obviously, we're on price focused here, so it won't be single cask. It'll tend to focus on the small batch side of things. Talk about the cask strength version of those two. Talk about new releases, and then maybe finish off with something a wee bit special. We don't need to keep it all to budget cheap whiskies. That's not what value means. Value and cheap are very different things. And then maybe at the end, what I'll do is I'll finish off with what I have come to celebrate as just being the undisputable bang for buck, sip per pound, unbeatable bottle of whiskey that's just doing it. It's not going to be around forever, but it's here right now. It's still available, and I'll share that with you at the very end. But before we get into all of that, I'll do what I do every week, and I'll welcome all of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies in the lounge. I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to have you all here on this Thursday night. I wonder how many more of you are sitting back watching the football. I would have postponed the start of the vPub if it was a Scotland game. I might have even postponed it if it was an England game. It's Italy, Spain that's playing right now, and in fact, I won't mention the score just in case some of you are watching the football on the replay. Anyway, I'm going to look out for the orange like I always do, so if you're trying to get my attention, just type Aquavita or @Aquavita, and I'll do my very, very best to catch your input tonight as well. What I've realised is that so many of you have got your own ideas of what is bringing value where you are located. At some point tonight, I need to touch on that geographical location and how big a factor it is in all of these kind of topics. Max Kreitner, my pal from Austria, is in. Good to see you, Max. Saying good evening, my friend. Greetings from Casa Kreitner. Hope you and Christina are doing very, very well. We've got something in the glass, Max. It's always wonderful to welcome you in here, buddy. Hellswood is here saying, evening, Roy. Good to have you, Helen. Thanks for looking after us as always as a moderator. Always wonderful to welcome you, and I hope Andy's sitting next to you, and I hope you're both doing and keeping well. Bruno Martins from Portugal. Good evening, Roy. Said it's always good to know where good value is on whiskey. I don't doubt for a second, Bruno, that you've got just as much knowledge on this as I do. If I'm able to bring anybody some surprises tonight, that's a wee bonus. But really, I hope that everybody picks up tonight. It's just given them a moment just to say, for us to say, yes, this is good value, and thank you. Pete Ed is here. Good to see you. Saying, evening, Roy. Only here for a wee time. Early flight to Glasgow tomorrow morning. I know you're travelling here for the weekend, Frank. I also know that that you've got a wee gathering in SMWS at the weekend. But Nick and Penny Keane from New Zealand are also in Glasgow right now, and I'm hoping that there's an opportunity to catch up with those guys, maybe in Glasgow over the course of the weekend. Harrow is here. Good to see you, Harrow. He's saying hello, Aquavita. Just had a value whiskey, a red label from the 60s. Wow. A 1960s Johnny Walker red label. I'm going to gamble. In fact, there's one right here. That's a 1960s Johnny Walker red there. I'm going to gamble that you didn't pay too much to experience that as well. Can be good fun. Nick Keane is indeed here. He's saying, hello, Aquavita, settling down for an evening vPub. So weird. Because obviously Nick and Penny are usually located in New Zealand, so they're either picking the vPub up on the replay, or if they are in here live, it's very early morning for them. So it's rather than a dram, they're probably having a coffee. It's wonderful. I hope Scotland's treating you well already, and hopefully we'll get a chance to raise a wee glass on Sunday. There is a football game on Sunday night, Nick, so we'll talk about that. A couple of wee drams come in. James DeJulio, great to see you, James. He's bought me a dram to say, I guess you may pick my next bottle tonight. Oh, is that right? So you're maybe ahead of the game a wee bit. You've got a good idea of what I'm probably going to be sharing with you, and you've got something on the go that you think I might already pick. James, be sure to let us know if that does happen. Let us know what it is, buddy, or if I'm close to it at all. Thank you very much for your generous dram, and I hope you're doing well. Cheers to Gail too. Scott Matheson is here. He said, celebrating first day in a new job. Still doing statistics, but I changed from medical stats, indulged in some fancy lechic earlier, but now on TBBSW, and right on theme as well with the value of that wee 6-year-old bottle. Scott Matheson, thank you very much for your dram, buddy. Cheers. So it's amazing to have Nick and Penny in Glasgow, travelling all the way from New Zealand. You were last here 5 years ago, I think. Falscraft is saying, evening, Roy. Kind of looking forward to this one since I'm planning to put a major order soon. Oh, okay, a major-ish order soon. So probably what you're planning to do is save up a bit, buy when the prices are good, buy when it's available, try and consolidate shipping, all of that kind of thing. I hope I can help you a wee bit, Klaus, and it's good to welcome you. And Rick Johnson saying good afternoon from San Francisco, Roy, and fellow barflies, always happy to talk value and affordability. Good. I think it's a common topic amongst my community in general. Warren Tanner, might be the first time I've welcomed you, Warren. If it is, welcome. It's nice to have you. And if it's not the first time, I apologise for forgetting. He's saying, evening, Roy. First time catching you live. Absolutely thrilled. Wow, it is your first time live. Fantastic to have you in, Warren. Nice to have you on a Thursday night live. Dude Record is here. Oh, good. A vPub that's probably going to hurt my wallet. I hope not. Or I hope that if you do make purchases on the back of tonight, I hope that you do genuinely appreciate that they are good value purchases. James De Julio is saying, Gail said, buy a bottle for Father's Day, value or special. Okay. Father's Day, it's got to be special, right? I didn't get any whiskey for Father's Day. I don't tend to get whiskey bought for me anymore. My family and everyone close to me sees the room that I'm sitting in right now, and they try actively to get me things other than whiskey, which makes a lot of sense. But I would go for something special, James. Jean Kelly saying, greetings, Roy. And barflies, looking forward to becoming acquainted with more value whiskies. I wonder, Jean, if I'm actually going to be able to surprise you with anything or just reaffirm what you maybe already know. As a community, we're actually pretty well versed with most of the good stuff right now, I would say. Luna Aaron is saying, hello, Roy. Hope you're doing well. So lovely to welcome you in, Luna, on a live. Wonderful. I hope you're doing well too. Tim Powell's is saying, evening, barflies. Jimmy Legg is saying, what's that Springbank bottle behind you? Sadly, it looks empty. Yes, this is a souvenir, Jimmy. This was a Limburg bottle. There was only about a wee drop left in this, and we bought it from the festival, and every single drop of it was shared on the train. I poured it out for everybody that was enjoying a wee dram. On the train back home to the hotel from Limburg, I almost forgot to pour myself a dram, but no, I left enough in it for me as well. It's a 1960s Springbank. But what's interesting about this, if you look at the top, it's a 21-year-old. So 1940s distillate. So I did a wee bit of research to double check that this would be a kind of legitimate bottle and things. And it's actually an Italian import. You can still see that the Italian tax stamp on the top there. I don't know if the camera will focus on that, but it's there. But it was wonderful, and it was a nice wee moment on the train in Germany. So it's there as a souvenir. I need to get a cork that fits it and maybe use it as a wee special Springbank Infinity bottle. Chris Robertson is here. It might be the first time I've welcomed you, Chris. I finally got to listen to live stream. Always watch on repeat. However, due to eroded cornea, I'm on the water tonight. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your eye. And it was wonderful to welcome you here, Chris. Fantastic. But I hope that the water helps repair that eye. And I hope you're well on the way to mending it. Welcome in, Chris, and get well soon. Cheers. Roland is here, Whiskey Radar, saying good evening, Roy. Hope you're well. Looking forward to another exciting vPub among lovely barflies. Wonderful, always to have you, Roland. And Christopher Malloy is here saying, how's that Infinity cask going? Well, I have to say I'm pretty excited about it, Chris. It's pretty good. Roddy and I have been really intrigued about this and just kind of had a wee exchange on the whole concept. And he came up with an idea. He's got access to a cask that he talked about appropriating for a similar project. And he thought it might be a nice idea for the next Roddy vPub. Roddy's doing a lot better. He's keeping in much better health. He would have been here if we could have got a date synchronized before the summer break, but it looks like it's going to be after summer now, which suits us both just fine. Chris, thank you very much for your virtual dram. Nice to welcome you in always, buddy. Cheers. Pedro Meneses from Brazil is in here celebrating being a member of Barflies for 14 months. Thursday vPubs, happy. He's saying fantastic. Good to have you, buddy. And Warner is saying, cheers for the shout out. That's my day made. Brilliant, Warner. It's wonderful to have you. I'll do my best to keep up with the chat as much as possible. You know what it's like. I just jump in and look, try and grab some random orange from time to time. But as I'm talking about topics and things, as each topic comes to a stop, I'll kind of jump into the chat like I always do. Try and keep the pace moving tonight. I don't want to keep you all too late. For the most part, to talk about whiskies that I think the majority of you already have a bit of a grip on. I don't think I need to surprise people with these kind of topics. I don't think that you often kind of talk about the bi-directional thing. A lot of the time you're feeding me where the good value is coming from. So we work as a kind of crowd, as a community, and we unearth things quite quickly. So it's very rare these days for things to slip under the radar and not be talked about. That said, it does happen from time to time. And there are some things that are mentioned, but often we don't dwell upon to realize just how a good thing it is. Jimmy Leg is saying, the further away that the Roddy vPub is pushed, the greater it will be when it arrives. Aquavite, pretty positive, right? Thank you, Jimmy. Right on theme, keeping things positive. Thank you, buddy. Okay, let's kick things off on a topic. Let's start with official bottlings. Let's start with core releases, the official releases from the distilleries themselves, from the main producers out there, the things that are ubiquitous. A lot of things I'm going to talk about tonight will suffer from regional availability issues. There's no doubt about that. They might mean that you end up looking on auction, or you're maybe going to consolidate a shipping and get some exporting done, or you're going to do something using the mule network in order to get your hands on some of these bottles if you're intrigued by them. But it's not really a kind of a mechanism for people to get fear of missing out, FOMO, right? It's not really a mechanism to have people buying bottles. It's a mechanism to have people aware of where prices are at today and what represents good value, and give some examples of where that good value is at. That's what it is. To kind of take stock, a snapshot of where we are. Don't worry, I don't have PowerPoint slides or spreadsheets or anything like I used to do back in the day for you tonight. Instead of what I've tried to do is do it through grabbing bottles, and I'll hold up bottles. And the examples I'll do as I always do, and just kind of leave the kind of benchmark stuff over my shoulder, the things I'm going to talk about throughout tonight to keep me straight. I'm going to kill a bottle in front of you. The dram in my glass tonight is Craigellach's 13-year-old. It's quite interesting. This is the last wee drip of what's in the bottle here. And this is probably about 48 to 50 pounds, maybe creeping into the early 50s. The recommended retail is in the early 50s for this, but most places have got it for sub 50 pounds. And I would hold this up and I would suggest that today in 2024, this is actually a value bottle of whiskey. 50 pounds is a lot of money to spend on a bottle of whiskey. There's no doubt about that. But this is 13 years old. This is a teenager. And it's tricky to get teenage Scotch whiskey for that kind of price these days. It's fully natural. It's 46% ABV, no added colour, all the things that we love. More than anything, though, it's delicious. And it's quite an interesting whiskey because it's an atypical Speyside, having quite interesting kind of weight and texture to it. It can be quite oily and mouth-coating at times. People often talk about having a slight funk or a savoury note or a meatiness to it because of the warm tub condensation and the way that the thing's made. And depending on which batch you pick up of this, might be a wee bit more sherry in it to kind of add to that sense. However, this is a perma-shelf bottle these days for me. It really is. I think it's great value. I think it's wonderful to have around, and it's lovely to appreciate this type of whiskey today. I'm going to hold this up as a wee bit of a benchmark. This is what we're going to be measuring a lot of the whiskey tonight. A 13-year-old, fairly mature, single malt Scotch whiskey, fully natural, interesting, delicious, ticking all the boxes, £50. That's where we're at in 2024. And I'm a wee bit frustrated by that. If I go back to the spreadsheets that I generated for this topic back in 2020, it's heartbreaking. Of course it is. I shouldn't be doing that. The problem is I shared it with everyone back in the day. So you can go to those early vPubs from 2020 when I talked about value, and you can see all the prices. And I can tell you that where our 10-year-old and 12-year-old whiskies tend to be between 40 and 60 pounds today, back then the majority of them were between 35 and 40 pounds. And it's recorded there for posterity on those spreadsheets. There were some products that were higher than that, even higher than the £50 mark. In fact, I listed the higher than £50 ones. Ben Nevis's 10 years was £50 to £52. Bladnoch was higher than £50. Their 10-year-old, of course. It's gotten even more expensive since. And Edredauer, interestingly, back then for their Caledonia 12-year-old was mid-50s to £60 back then. Still kind of similar today. But what's interesting is that the Craigellachie 13-year-old was £46 back then. It's hardly increased in price at all in that time. Now, that makes me nervous. That really does make me nervous that I'm reminding somebody that they've missed an opportunity to bump up the price a wee bit. I'm just going to put my fan on. It's a wee bit, it's warm in Scotland. It's got above 15 degrees, right? I think that's about as slow. If people are hearing the fan through the mic, let me know and I'll switch it off. Hopefully it's okay. That's quite telling, isn't it? This bottle of, now either it was maybe a bit too expensive back when it was out, probably true, and everything else has just caught up with it. I think that that's probably what's happened. But in 4 years, that's not gone up in price. Most of the other things that's similar to it that I'm going to put up, hold up today and celebrate today, maybe something that I might top up the glass with, let's say, is going to be surprisingly close to that on price, regardless. Craigellachie 13 is our kind of official kind of stake in the ground right now. And it's just nice, fruity, malty, honest, some quite nice spice actually, despite the fact there's only been a little drop of left in the bottom of that bottle for quite a few months. It's still got some nice grip and spice to it. It's just a lovely, lovely sipping whiskey. Aquavitas, don't say that too loudly, Roy. So that's Helen talking about they might notice the price, but I think that it's the right price right now. I think it's fairly priced, especially given the market mood right now. Alistair McPhail is saying Natap Saf. That's right. It's not quite that weather yet, is it? It's high teens, Alistair. I'll try and keep the t-shirt firmly in place. So what else have we got from from official outlets then that can compete with that? Well, remember, I'm not going to just bring up a parade of bottles tonight to say this, and the other thing. I'm going to dial right into the value proposition, and I'm going to hold up some things that's going to be very obvious to you. Only one of them is going to make it over here next to the bottle of Craigellachie. And the first one I'm going to bring up is, in a lot of ways to me, something that's very, very similar to Craigellachie. It's similar in age, similar in presentation, 46% all natural, all that kind of thing. Tends to be a wee bit more bourbon focused. I know that to a lot of you out there, you're going to be able to dial in and pick up quite significant differences between this distillery and Craigellachie. But for me, it's quite similar in terms of all-rounder profile. And it's Deanston's 12-year-old. Another permashelf for me. There's only 1 dram left in the bottom of this bottle. Will I be replacing this? Well, absolutely. I think, as you know, it's been on the vPub so many times in the past. Interesting as it may be, I have been raving about Deanston in all shapes and forms since the early days. And still, they're bringing us one of the best value products. It's about £45. Normal RRP is maybe creeping a wee bit up closer to 50 maybe, but we're regularly able to pick up the Deanston 12 at 40 and maybe even a wee bit less, creeping back to the price it was back then when it's on offer. I love the stuff, and I'll always have it around. Deanston 12 I'm demonstrating to you that it's a bit of a permashelf bottle for me too. I think it's fantastic quality single malt whiskey. Here's another one, similar profile as well, exclusively ex-bourbon. You can probably predict all of these ones I'm going to pick out and talk to you about now in terms of the official bottlings. This is ex-bourbon 2, Glencadam's 10-year-old. Back when I was doing this exercise, this was one of the ones that we uncovered to be absolutely cracking value. In fact, it might have been one of the bottles that inspired this topic back in the day, because I was picking this up at £29. It's quite a bit more expensive than that, and it's sitting around the early 40s right now for this, but that doesn't mean that it's any less of a proposition when it comes to value. The quality of this whiskey is incredible. And in fact, as I was setting up tonight, I did a wee experiment that I'll touch upon a bit later, and I set this alongside something else that I've got open that will come on a wee bit later. And this really showed just how good quality a malt whiskey it was. Wonderfully bright, fresh, without any trace of youthfulness whatsoever. It's just got everything that we love. It's malty, it's a wee bit floral, it's sweet and it's easy, it's lightly, gently spiced. It's just cracking whiskey, and actually got a nice lick of complexity about it too, despite its 10-year age statement. Easy to recommend, especially for people that like the ex-bourbon profile. But that's not going to be the one that goes over here as our kind of benchmark. The one that we have to put as our benchmark is just an incredible thing. I don't know how they are pulling this off today. This is from Arran. They're bringing us a fully natural product. They put it in big letters across the front. They bring an age statement as well. It's a 10-year-old from them. And I know, because of the wonderful success that this bottle has seen in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards every single year, everybody knows about this. What's amazing to me, Arran are a tiny distillery. Really quite, okay, they're not tiny. They're twice as big as they were when this was made. This was made probably 10 or 12 years ago now. The liquid that's in this bottle, they would have been making about 500,000 litres a year, 600,000 litres a year, something of that order. Well, they're capable of making probably twice that much now, because they've just gone through quite a big expansion. So they're getting bigger all the time. But they are not massive. They've been about half the size of Glengoyne for a long time. And yet they have got this bottle of whiskey on almost every retail shelf across the whiskey drinking planet. And they're able to put it out there for £40 and sometimes less. I have seen this on offer recently for £34. Now, I don't know if it's Arran that's taken the hit on that, whether it's the supply chain, whether it's the retailer, probably all of it. But £34 for this 10-year-old Arran means that, and given the flavour, given the fantastic malt whiskey that's in the bottle for that price, not only do I see it difficult for any producer to come along and compete with that, I'm actually asking how they're able to do it. And if they are able to do it and make money on it, why are other producers not able to do something similar to that? There are benchmarks, but there's almost £10 separating those two. I would need to ask you whether the slightly sweeter, kind of more first fill bourbon profile of the Arran 10 would be something that drew you because it was a wee bit cheaper. They're both fully natural. Or you'd be willing to pay a wee bit more for an extra 3 years age. Maybe arguably a wee bit more interest and complexity over that Arran. But they are both absolutely cracking whiskies. Even in this area, at this price point, there's quite a lot of separation in value. Closer to £50, early 50s for the Craigellachie, £40, early 40s for the Arran. That's where we're at in 2024. I mentioned the Deanston and the Glencadam just to kind of puff things out a little bit, to let you know that there are other producers out there that's still bringing us good prices like they were back originally when I did this exercise back in 2020. But you might notice that the profile is a wee bit samey. There's some sherry cask in that Craigellachie, sure, but nobody would consider it a sherry bomb. It's quite light and fresh. It's either middle of the spectrum or leaning a wee bit more to bourbon in profile, I would say. What about the sherry side of things? Let me get to that. Sherry is naturally more expensive. A bourbon cask can be anywhere from £70 to £120, depending on where you buy it from and what kind of quality of wood and all these things. But a sherry cask can be anywhere from €600 to over €1,000. It's much, much more expensive. Now, it's bigger. It's going to hold, 2.5 times as much as a bourbon barrel. but it's much, much more expensive. And people tend to be a much more precious with it, and they also tend to be much more precious with the liquid that comes out of that sherry cask too, and it tends to command a slightly higher price. So there's room for us to get into the kind of more sherry end of things as we go through our categories tonight. It's going to be interesting to hear you guys sharing your picks throughout tonight. By all means, chime in as I come to the natural end. I'll drop the wee banner if I'm even remotely aware of what I'm doing. I'll try and drop the wee banner, and that means I'll kind of drop into the chat for a wee second. I'm always kind of mindful of the fact that whiskies are not available to everyone, everywhere, all of the time. Know that I can only speak to you about the whiskies that I am interacting with today. It might frustrate that either the whiskey that I'm talking about has not reached your market yet, or it might frustrate that the whiskey I'm speaking about is much more expensive in your market. And I think that what I can do is either suddenly redesign everything that I talk about to try and, take all of that into account, which would kind of make it all a wee bit dull and insipid. Or I can just talk to you about, from my perspective, really close to the source when it's Scotch whisky, of course. And then you can contextualize where you are from that. You then have a different reading on the value because you know how much it is here. So you can sense when you're being overcharged, when somebody is gouging, perhaps. And it doesn't always necessarily mean the retailer. It can sometimes mean at some point in the supply chain, the importer, the distributor, the rep, the agent, whoever it works, somebody is taking a wee bit more than they should, I would guess. Jesse Artanzalo celebrating being a member of Barflies for 30 months. Fantastic, Jesse. It's wonderful to have you. He's saying, good evening, Aquaviti and all the Barflies. Thank you for supporting. Rico Donerta celebrating being a member for 42 months in St. Slantia. And Dave Barnes is celebrating being a member for 25 months. Wow, Dave. Rico on 42 and Jesse on 30 months. The Barflies here, along with Pedro, they're joining the YouTube membership here by clicking that join button underneath the live video on YouTube, and they're keeping all my content on YouTube ad-free. The money that I get now from Barflies mean that I'll never switch on ads for YouTube ever, and you don't need to sit through ads, which is hopefully a good bonus for you, especially if you're picking up on the replay and picking the vPub up in podcast chunks. I'm supported through Patreon, the people who step forward and sign up to Patreon to support me. That's where the channel is funded. Everything I do is funded. Oswaz has been funded out of that. The Online Scotch Whisky Awards and Dramface grew out of that same pool of money too. That's how everything works, Patreon. You guys help now and keep things completely ad-free, and I do appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Terror Tower is saying Glencadam 10-2, off to a cracking start. Good. Looks like we're if I'm vibing with what you guys are enjoying, that's good as well. But make sure you chime in and let me know if I've managed to pick up or miss things that you would have liked mentioned. Welsh Toro is here. Good to see you, Welsh. And Greg in Paris is here too. Greg saying seasoned sherry cask should not be as expensive as yesterday's full maturation quality cask, in my opinion. Just saying Aquavita, even when it was Paxaret instead. I think there's an interesting argument to have there. It's maybe not the time or the place for it tonight, Greg, but if you're talking about seasoned sherry cask versus an ex-bodega cask or something like that, the ex-bodega cask is probably going to be dismantled. They're surplus to requirement. The wood is dead now. It's just the only flavour that's going to come from that is sherry. If you're talking about a specifically custom-built seasoned sherry cask, where they will specify whether it's kiln-dried or air-dried, specifically what type of oak, the toasting level, all of these things are going to be specified, whatever it's going to be seasoned with. That's an expensive process to go through. Seasoned is kind of like a really chucked around term, often used in a derogatory way. It has nothing to do with whether it's seasoned or not, but it's how it's built, what it's seasoned with, by who, for what purpose. That's got much more to do with it than anything, and there is a price to be paid for it all. and the price is the going rate, right? Welsh Toro is saying, I've started to go into my stash. Good to see you, Welsh. It's amazing because I'm realizing how good we drank 10 years ago. I never bought to flip. Well, you're benefiting out of that right now. But I think what we have to do is always be mindful that we don't turn into one of those people, and I'm talking about myself here, that ends up talking too much about what we used to be able to buy, how much we used to be able to buy it for. When the people that are coming into whiskey and enjoying whiskey today, and they're really excited and jazzed about it all, they just hear these kind of stories about how, oh, it's nice to have you, but it was better in the old days. Truthfully, it was. But 10 years ago, there would have been people saying that about 10 years before then, and 10 years before that, and so on and so forth. But you're spot on, Welsh. It's changed quite a lot. Luna Aaron saying, I really enjoy the Ardnamurchan standard release. Great price for an interesting dram. Luna, I don't know how long you're going to be about tonight, but you might see Ardnamurchan appear a wee bit later. And Warren is saying, Glengarry's Founders Reserve, by no means a perfect whiskey, but for the price point, it's a wonderfully solid dram. That's right, the non statement. Entry-level product is probably a full £10 cheaper in the UK than their 12-year-old. The 12-year-old's about £48, £50, but the 1797 Founders Reserve, you can find regularly for less than 40. A good shout, Warren. Adwarte is saying, evening all, Aquaviti, a bit late to join, but catching up. Oops, jumps. Sorry, Adwarte, I'm going to try and catch you, buddy. Yeah, a bit late to join, but catching up at 1.5 speed, and I'm nearly there. I wonder how I sound at 1.5 speed. Regan Haddock saying, good evening. No idea how long I've been here for. Good to make a live. Been a while. Fantastic. Always wonderful to welcome you in whenever you can. Good to have you, Regan Haddock's back. George Ellis saying, my prices are roughly 2 times yours in the US. I have fled to independent bottlers like Journey Series from Hunter Lang. And that's how it's going to be. We're starting to notice that the independents here are struggling to compete with the official. It's flipped where the independents used to be priced nicely under the official releases. That's changed for most of it, not all of the time. Tobias is saying, with a mention of Ardnamurchan AD and Benromic contrast, organic, I would have gotten an Aquavite bingo. Well, hang around a wee bit longer, Tobias. Reb is saying, some of these old Barriga casks have 40 years of grape pulp sticking to the inside. The wine flavour is overpowering. That's right. Ryan Sutherland is saying, from a professional standpoint, you can't compete with made-to-spec sherry seasoned casks. The quality is second to none. And what you're doing is you're dialing in exactly what you want for your whiskey as well. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, not all this, Roy, I agree, is a generality. I meant the more regular ones, which with not big quality sherry and to start with, some distilleries indeed, sorry, Greg, it's jumps. Some distilleries indeed use carefully seasoned casks. Jimmy like, oh, the wood is fine, Aquavite, it's the sherry that tastes shite. Very little sherry is drank anymore unless I'm totally missing the boat. If you go to Spain, everybody drinks sherry. There's millions of it. You go into a bodega, one of these shops in Spain, and they've got casks of this stuff, and you take along your empty container, and they just fill it straight from the casks, and it costs next to nothing. It's gorgeous. It tastes delicious. Last time I was in Spain, it was Welsh Toro. I'll tell you all about it. Last time I was in Spain, it was the PX I was leaning towards because my wife tends to like the sweeter, thicker style. But this year, obviously, because we go in summer too, I'm going to be looking for the lighter, nuttier, kind of more summery styles of sherry to try when I'm over there. James is saying, prices do not scare me, just Gale. And another wee dram has come in from Anthony Dunn saying, happy vPub. Some star treated me with a membership. Fantastic, Anthony. I'll give that a wee like and a thank you. Nice to have you. And Red Mordecai is here too saying, good evening, Roy. I see the Yerushalmi on the shelf. It's over my shoulder here, buddy. Cheers to you both. Nice to have you. And Luna's saying, Fino, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to new distilleries because they're catching up. We're still on the theme of official releases like the first lot, but I want to focus a wee bit on kind of what the new distilleries are bringing now that they start to become a wee bit mature. Ardnamurchan are 10 years old this year. Theoretically, we're all a wee bit excited about the possibility that we might see an Ardnamurchan with an age statement on it. If we do, I don't think it'll become core range. In the past, Alex Bruce has been on the vPub talking about these very things, and he's been on the Online Scotch Whisky Awards talking about it too. He's not keen to do that. He's enjoying what they're doing at Ardnamurchan right now. But nevertheless, they've got 10-year-old spirit later this year. It's amazing to me. Wolfburn have already released a 10-year-old. There are more and more distilleries all the time bringing out, let's forget about double digits, 10-year-old, just bringing out more mature, older product all the time. At some point tonight, we will get to talking about Ardnamurchan, but it won't be for the AD, and it won't be for any kind of 10-year-old, of course not. It doesn't exist yet, but it is for something interesting. But now I want to talk about a distillery that's much, much closer to home. I want to talk about a Glasgow distillery. I want to talk about the first Glasgow distillery, the one that called themselves Glasgow. They were never something that appeared on the vPub. And then through the Ignored series, I think it was a couple of years ago, we started to talk about them. I had a taster pack originally. It got me interested a wee bit more. A distillery that I'd tasted when it first arrived and decided I would wait and step back for a wee while. It used to be presented in 50 cl bottles. This is a well-told story. And then eventually they realized that that was probably not the best idea, and they switched to 70 cl. Of course, the masterstroke was that they kept the price the same as the 50 cl. That suddenly made them instantly much more of a value proposition. So we started to connect with their 1770 peated. Interestingly, the one I have on hand right now happens to be the cask strength. We're not talking about cask strength whiskies yet. In fact, it might be nice to put that down and I can pick it up again when we do talk about the cask strength. The other part of their core range is the original series. This is the original I've got on the go here, trying to getting to know this one a wee bit better. And I've got a new one to uncork here too as well. And this is a bit paler, a bit lighter. This is Glasgow's Triple Distilled, again, core range. Why am I talking about core range now? I should know better to take the cellophane off before I uncork anything, because it can be fiddly to find the tear strip, especially when I'm live. There is a tear strip on this. Look at that. This is the first time I've had a full bottle of the Triple Distilled. I think it's got one of those locking corks on it too. And I think I'm going to have to get, maybe it's still sealed, some pliers out to get this one open. Oh no, it's still sealed. Still some plastic on it. No. I am going to end up having to put up one of those kind of be back soon screens and then go and smash the thing open, get it in the end. But it has got a little kind of lock-in mechanism on the top, a bit like the Highland Parks, so you can screw it down and then it doesn't pop during transportation. But that one was, that was on pretty tight. Maybe I'm just getting old and weak. So they've got three. They've got a peated, they've got the original, and they've got a triple distilled. It's kind of fun, right? It's a little bit in line, almost like something like Loch Lomond, but although Loch Lomond don't have triple distilled, maybe a bit more like Springbank with a kind of Hazelburn, Springbank, Longrow type lineup, that kind of thing. A wee bit like Ben Romack's series. A lot of variation in the spirit that they're producing and putting out there. So now that we've got 70 cl bottles, the other exciting thing that's happening is that the whiskey inside the bottle is a wee bit more mature. All of them are non-age statement. So we don't know the ages of the whiskies that's involved here, but we can tell by the sipping experience, hopefully, if things are getting a wee bit better. Let's try this triple distilled. Quite fresh and winey at first approach. Wee bit green. Remember, I'll always caveat these uncorkings with the fact that it is a neck pour. It's literally an uncorking. You get a good idea, a good sense, but you don't really give the whiskey a full chance. Clean and green. Sweet. Sugar sweet, vanilla sweet, a wee bit floral, creamy. Light and bright is the overall sense here. 46% ABV. I do believe that they They write non-chill filtered and natural colour on there. Pretty sure it's on here. Non-chill filtered natural colour, right in the label in blue text. Smooth and vibrant against their fresh and fruity standard core release, and the peated, they're saying rich and smoky. Cheers, everyone. Oh, you were always going into Glasgow whiskey, sipping a wee glass of. Now, remember, I'm sipping this on the back of Craigellachie 13, a Glencairn 10, and the other one that I compared the Glencairn 10 a lot. I'll get to that a wee bit later. But I've been sipping fairly good whiskies, and this, where once upon a time I'm convinced it would have immediately shown its youth, that kind of new make vibe would have been prevalent on the palate, and it would have been one of the first things that you encountered in a glass. That is much more in check these days. There's a wee bit of pineapple here, bright yellow fruit, kiwi, lime, green. You know the fruit lane I'm in. Much more mature, much more integrated, much softer, much easier to connect with. We're seeing a local distillery here that's been around for, I think, about 9 years now, Glasgow, starting to come into its own, starting to have a wee bit of personality about it, starting to, 2015, yeah, so 9 years, starting to have a real value proposition. And in 2025, next year, they'll have been around for 10 years. I don't know how much 10-year-old spirit they'll have around, probably not very much, but that's quite exciting for the future because they're proving that they're getting better and better all the time. Now, why am I talking about Glasgow Distillery today? Why am I talking about Glasgow Distillery right now? They've gone from 50cl to 70cl and kept the prices the same. And this year, they have announced that they're going to drop the retail prices. I don't know what it was originally, but 49 to £50 was their recommended retail price. They're dropping that to 45. I don't know how long that's going to take to get out into the marketplace generally, to reach all the retailers, for the stock to clear and for the lesser price stock to make it out there. But that's incredible to me, where all the other producers seem to be a bit tone deaf about the fact that we all have pricing fatigue. There's a producer standing up there and saying, well, we're going to reduce the retail price. They know what they're doing now. They're starting to get economies of scale, perhaps. They're starting to get slicker, sharper, more efficient. They know what they're doing. And they've decided to try to pass the cost or the savings on to the consumer. They want to succeed, I suggest, is what's happening. Glasgow Distillery are bringing it. I've got other examples that I can show you. I could reach up to my wee Glasgow stash here, and I could pick up some of the single casks. My favourite, the most recent one, it's not available anymore, unfortunately, but the single cask Manthania from Glasgow. Do I have it here, actually? I actually thought I would have picked it out so that I could have held it up. Perhaps not. But it was £59. Interestingly, that special edition was also a single cask. £59 for a fully natural Manthania cask. I can't remember what the ABV was. 58, 59% ABV. Fantastic value. £59. This peated cask, cask strength peated cask, you can pick this up online right now for about £52, £54. If you pick it up at bricks and mortar retail, maybe nearer £60, but this is at 60.8% ABV. This is probably amongst the best value cask strength whiskey you can buy right now. And it's a naturally coloured product. enjoying this colour, obviously, from the PX casks in the mix. Just fantastic value, doing everything that we ask the best that they can. Just fantastic. Congratulations. Anthony Dunn has gifted 10 Aquavitae memberships. No, he's gifted 5 Aquavitae memberships. 1, then 5, then 10. Fantastic, Anthony. Very, very generous. Thank you so much. Happy vPub. Some star treated me with a membership, so obviously he's paying it forward. Fantastic, Anthony. Good to have you in, and thank you very much for your generosity. And Rick Johnson is saying, a dram to toast Peter Lee's birthday week. Yes, we managed to catch Peter Lee's birthday ever so briefly. Hopefully he's milking it and he's getting the absolute best out of it as well. To Peter Lee's birthday week, to Rick Johnson, and to Anthony Dunn. Cheers to you all. Hopefully I didn't miss anything there. Let me scroll back a wee bit just to check, make sure. I think I've caught up. So I think it's nice if an official producer, if an official release makes a statement like that, not through words, not through a PR, not through a social media comment or anything, but they actually act in order to make a statement. That has to be celebrated. Now, you will argue that it's still Young Whiskey Roy at £45. We've talked about at length here that it's not, when we're at that end of the scale, that end of the spectrum, the cost is making the whiskey. The cost is not actually maturing the whiskey. Yeah, there's got to be money coming in while they make more whiskey, of course. So it's an expensive thing to lay whiskey aside for it to mature, of course. But generally speaking, what these producers have suggested to us is that as the whiskey matures, we'll maintain the price and keep it at the same point. Glasgow Distillery's gone one step further than that. As their whiskey has matured and actually got better, in my opinion, they have stepped up to reduce the price. That's a rare thing, but it's not a unique thing. And we're going to talk a bit more of that throughout tonight. Alistair McPhail is saying, Anthony, your cask bottling is great. It's going down well with the people I'm sharing it with. Fantastic that you've got one, Alistair. Fantastic that you're sharing it too. Rev Mordecai is saying, you have to get the Glasgow Tequila cask. It's superb. I bought it in the Inverurie whiskey shop. So Rev's an experienced guy. He's been around whiskey for a long time. If he's recommending a Glasgow Distillery product to you as well, maybe we should pay attention. Now, somebody I know had the tequila cask, but I didn't pick that one up. Peter Lay saying, good evening. Now that you've mentioned Glasgow Distillery, Libby and friends are coming to the restaurant tomorrow for a celebration. Is it a Peter Lee birthday celebration, buddy? Fantastic, Peter. Good to have you in a wee bit earlier than usual as well, I hope. Dominic Fife is saying Kingsbarns also has a 10th birthday this year. The core bottling Duca is delicious. Great value in a local barley release like all Kingsbarns. Fife deserves to be a designated region. It's funny because it's not the same spelling, Dominic, but your surname is also Fife. Wonderful to have you in. Kingsbarns got some recent love on the vPub when I was talking about both the Dream to Dram and the Duca very recently. Willie Buchanan is saying, good evening, Roy, to all the barflies. Have my big 65 birthday tomorrow, and the whiskies are more in my price range now. Don't have the same cash available. I know what you're saying, Willie. Willie, if it's your birthday tomorrow, I'm going to raise this wee glass and hope that everybody else can raise a wee glass or click on their emojis in the chat to wish your pal Willie Buchanan a very happy 65th birthday tomorrow. Hope you have a brilliant weekend, big guy, and I hope the whiskies treat you well too. Happy birthday. Hope Colin and Morag could treat you very well. David Larenko is in saying, please raise a glass to Alfredo Goncalves. Alfredo Goncalves, founder of the biggest private collection of closed bottles by Guinness Records and the best whiskey shop in Lisbon that have left us today. Oh my goodness. He's passed away. The biggest private collection of closed bottles by Guinness Records and the best whiskey shop in Lisbon. Well, David, my friend, I've never heard of Alfredo before, but I'm sorry to hear that he's passed. And I think it's probably, hopefully, an amazing thing, the legacy that he's left behind. As you request, my friend David, to Alfredo in Lisbon. Rest in peace. George L is asking, anyone know if Compass Box Glasgow blend is the same liquid? If you're talking about Glasgow Distillery and Glasgow whiskey, George, no, it's completely different, but there might be an opportunity. There might be an opportunity for us to talk a wee bit about the Glasgow blend tonight. Depends on how I get through. I've got one off to the side here. It's not a typical Glasgow blend. I'm not even sure. It's just there in case I do get time to speak about it. It will be spoke about at some point in the future in the vPub. Kind of fits the theme tonight, but I'm not sure. Hellswood is saying, not sure he was in, but it was also that Yoga Meister's Eric Cunliffe's birthday yesterday, Aquavite. Wow, Eric, my goodness. Well, there was one birthday Eric and I were able to raise a COVID, unfortunately, COVID period dram together. We hooked up on his birthday for a wee quick dram and video call once upon a time. Eric, my friend, I hope Renee has been treating you very, very well, and hope you've had a fantastic birthday. Happy birthday, Eric Cunliffe. And thank you, Helen, for keeping me right. And Alistair is saying, for me, blends will always offer the best value, especially what's available just now. A lot of you are predicting where the theme is going to go tonight. Let's move on quickly, okay? So we've gone through the new distilleries catching up. So let's see what our official producers, whether they're new distilleries or not, where is it going when it comes to us and our environment, the enthusiasts, and what we like to drink tends to be more ABV, punchy, right? We like our batch strength, we like our cask strength, we like our single casks, we like all of that stuff. But it's expensive these days. Back when I first started enjoying whiskey, certainly even back when I started the channel in 2017, independent bottlers were where you went for much, much better value. That's harder today because of the dynamics behind whiskey, the value of the cask, the value of the liquid. Independent bottlers were finding it hard to get hold. It's not that they find it hard to get hold of casks. They can get hold of casks, but it's hard to get hold of casks at a good price point today in 2024. Things are softening, I hear, but it's anecdotal right now. The prices on the shelf remain a wee bit out of reach for a lot of producers. There are some independents out there that are able to bring us cracking value, and I want to talk about them, touch upon them, not only tonight, but as the vPub goes on in the future, of course. But generally speaking, it's a bit harder for them to bring the value. So I was looking for the Glasgow Manthania bottle. It's sitting right here. Okay, it's there. It's definitely an age thing. So we're talking about cask strength releases. Let's touch upon the official cask strength releases first. I'm going to bring up two that I would not get out of here without being shouted at tonight if I didn't mention them to you. And it's simply because of the value that they offer. Look, we love our Benromac cask strength. We really do. £65, £68, that's not out of order. It's not expensive. It's still within the realm of affordability for an annual or batch release type product, let's say, £65 to £70. Ardnamurchan's cask strength as well, £65. We're happy to pay it. Kilkerran, 8-year-old, I know you can't get a hold of it, £55 to £60. Fantastic value. Springbank's 12-year-old cask strength, remember that's a 12-year-old's age statement in there as well, £70. But again, it's just, when was the last time you saw one on the shelf? Amazingly, I saw one on the shelf this week. I couldn't believe it. I snatched it immediately. It was just pure good fortune and luck. It's been years since I've seen a Springbank 12 on the shelf. I got it at retail. That retail price was £70. But there are cask strength releases out there that are less than that. Admittedly, they don't all carry an age statement on them, not like the Springbank. But the Benromac, well, it has a vintage statement on there. It doesn't carry an age statement. It does tell us how old the liquid is. Other cask strength releases, less so. Doesn't mean that they're any less drinkable. Kiyoshi Fukui, I'm going to suggest that's potentially a Japanese name, but it's coming to us in US dollars. But it's the first time I've welcomed you in, Fukui-san. He's saying, my first live in over a year, relocated to the US West Coast from Japan, and even more difficult to catch the live, but enjoying the show. So you would have been picking this up in the early hours of the morning, and now you're having to pick it up in the early afternoon. Kiyoshi, it's wonderful to have you in. It's a generous dram for you to have purchased me. I hope things have gone well with the move, and welcome to the West Coast US. Cheers. Kiyoshi-san, Fukui-san. Alison McPhail is saying, I see Kilkerran 8s on the shelves in London. I hope you see them on the shelves in London at retail price. I really hope you do, Alistair. The one I'm just about to hold up is much cheaper than the ones I've been mentioning. You can pick this up for, I've seen it sub 50, I have seen it sub 50 on special offer, but typically it's about 50 to 55 pounds. And it's Tomatin's cask strength, this one 57.5% ABV, which I believe is actually batch strength. I think that's quite a typical ABV. They mostly are released at 57.5. I had forgotten how much I was enjoying this bottle of whiskey. This is quite youthful, it is quite punchy. There's a quite acidic note to this. There's lots of fruit involved, but the most predominant flavour on Tomatin's cask strength is maltiness. Sometimes you sip it and you swear you could be chewing malted barley, or that sense that the flavours that you get if you've ever chewed malted barley, that kind of malty sensation, that those malty flavours comes through in this product. It's fantastic value. Like I say, £55 and less. They are still bringing value. We can't talk about Tomatin and not go off to the west of Scotland and talk about Arran. I opened up tonight and Arran's sitting on the shelf over to the side is their 10-year-old. This Arran quarter cask, 56.2% ABV, used to be called the Bothy. I think they've gone away from calling it the Bothy and it's just the quarter cask now. If you are better informed in the comments, let me know. I think that that's the case. This is their slightly younger but much more punchier take on Arran's profile. One of the wonderful things to do that I've discovered is to take a half glass of Arran 10-year-old and spike it with a half glass of the quarter cask and watch what it does. Leave it for a wee while in the glass. It's just great fun to do it. It's amazing. So if some people find the vanillas and the toffee and the butterscotch in the Arran 10 a little bit too sweet, the maltiness and the freshness and the brighter white fruit of this quarter cask really, really brings the glass alive. You're going to end up somewhere in the high 40s in terms of ABV by mixing the two. But it's just a really good fun thing to do. And remember that you've still got a single malt whiskey in the glass, just one that you've made yourself at home. Good fun. And a cracking bottle of whiskey in its own right, similarly priced to the Tomatin. Here's another one that I'm actually going to pour a wee glass from, because this is going to be my pick. It's my second bottle of this. This was originally only available at the distillery. It's now widely available everywhere, and it's taken a concept that some people loved and some people were okay with. There was nobody that really disliked this as a product, but now that it's cask strength, I think it really brings on another dimension. This is Deanston's Virgin Oak. Fully natural. Deanston's Virgin Oak is typically their standard offering is their entry-level product from Deanston. So it's ex-bourbon cask matured with Virgin Oak finish. I think it's the same for the cask strength. This bottle is actually the original one I purchased, which is a distillery exclusive. There's another one, which is a white label these days, but the specs are more or less similar. This one is at 55% ABV, and it's very, very, I'm not going to say it's inexpensive, but it's very good value right now. We don't know what age the whiskey in this is, but I'm going to guess it's 5, 6, 7 years old, maybe 8 years old, of that order. But the virgin cask really adds a sense of lovely, toffee, sticky, heavy sweetness to things. You would think you're going to have reminiscent of bourbon and things. No, it's still very malt forward. Wow. Quite a rich nuttiness to it tonight. On the back of what else I've been sipping. So much spice, cinnamon, concentrated vanilla oil, vanilla pods. Wow. Coconut. Huge finish. Just, it's that ABV, 55% ABV. It just coats the palate. Really quite a unique wee bottle of whiskey. The latest, the white label version, this is the distillery exclusive, the one that first came out. The white label version I picked up for £49. It's sitting about the early 50s, the mid 50s right now. This is, I'm talking about in the UK, so somewhere in the order of $60, $65 for a cask strength product of Deanston malt, treated slightly differently, brought out quite young and fiery, but it doesn't suffer from that. I think with this product, they've taken the virgin oak, the standard virgin oak is 46.3%, and they've just given it that extra injection of energy and vitality. Red fruits now too, like red berries, red grapes, red, just a flash of red fruit there. So if you wanted a cask strength pick from me today, from official bottlings, that is what I'd be drawn towards, something like that. Honestly, if you wanted something a bit richer, a bit darker, a bit peatier, look no further than, although I don't know what I did with it, I put it over here, didn't I? Glasgow's 1770 peated cask strength. There's a cask strength version of that and a cask strength version of the original Glasgow 1772. Ben Whiskey with Molly, interesting comment coming up here. He's saying, not getting on with virgin oak. Bought this as a great value bottle, but it's languishing on my shelf. If you find yourself loving Scotch whiskey and everything that brings, everything that it offers, and you find yourself not excited by heavy cask influence, you have to be mindful of that when it comes to anything with a virgin oak thing on it. If you love bourbon, especially higher ABV bourbons in this context, you're going to find it easier to connect with things like this virgin oak. Who else is the Glengarry, of course, has got their virgin oak out there too. I think Auchentoshan has had a virgin oak. There's various people been playing around with virgin oak in the past. A lot of producers out there will have virgin oak in the vatting and not necessarily disclose that it's in there. As long as it's come from an oak cask, the amount of times that cask has been used does not need to be disclosed. However, a lot of people, when it's very virgin oak forward, are going to struggle with it, Ben. They're not going to enjoy that really kind of heavy, sweet, nutty, toffee, butterscotch, kind of wood spice thing that virgin oak brings. I've got a wee bit of a taste for it, and I suspect I've got a taste for it through my sipping of American whiskies. Specifically bourbon. Wow, big cinnamon blast. Cinnamon. And a kind of nuttiness to it. Almost you could consider maybe there's a roasted nut element to it. There's no smoke or anything in there at all. It's not that. It's just a sense of a kind of slightly savory quality to it. Complete step change to everything I've been sipping so far. We would expect that the official releases that are out there just now for today's 40 to 50, 50 to 60 pounds for the core range entry level stuff, for their cask strength versions to be much more expensive than that. The way that they're able to do it, I suspect, is that they're bringing slightly younger whiskies out, and I'm speaking about the Deanston Virgin Oak here, I'm speaking about the Heron Quarter cask, the Tomatin cask strength, slightly younger whiskies out at higher ABV, and still managing to keep the price within shooting range of the core range. I think that that's how they're doing it. Luna is saying virgin oak tastes a lot like glue for me, sniffing glue in primary school before all the security glue things. Listen, I remember a period of my life sipping and nosing whiskey that I couldn't touch. Like so many of the bourbons that I was sipping, as soon as I nosed it, all I got was what I used to call acetone. It was like a really solventy note. It was incredible. It reminded me of the extreme, the way that I used to smell ridiculously, you know, when it was peaty whiskey, it was going to be like literally ashtray. It was going to be like fireplace, all the horrible things like ash and soot and all of these things. And in some cases, it would be almost medicinal TCP type quality on things like Lefroy. And I couldn't get past that. Now I have to search for those notes. It's kind of funny how your brain just adapts to the most obvious flavor that's up front and starts to cancel it out so that you reach beyond that and you start to explore other flavors beyond it. But the vPub, the intention of the vPub tonight is not to change anyone's minds or direction of palate or anything like that. If you know that your lane is not virgin oak, I get it completely. Rican Harrix is saying, watch out, the term virgin oak has been highlighted by certain people as an unacceptable term, wanting it changed to new oak or something along those lines. Oh, thank you for trying to keep me right and on the safe side of offending people. But right now, it's a branded product. I can kind of understand it a wee bit, but that's the first time I've heard it, Rican Haddix. Quite amazing, the days that we live in, right? Fantastic. So those are my cask strength releases. We're going to move on a wee bit when we talk about cask strength releases, or we're going to get to other cask strength releases a wee bit later tonight, because I want to switch it up a wee bit. Rather than dwell fully on official releases, I also want to talk about independent releases. Now, I'm not going to get much of a chance to talk about single casks tonight. Single casks are a very specific thing. There is a cask of whiskey, it is bottled and it's labelled, and once it's gone, and it's never going to exist again. It's a very unique thing. It tends to command a wee bit of a premium, especially if it's a good single cask, for that reason. But that is a mere sliver of the whiskey that's consumed. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. If it's more than 1%, I'd be surprised. It's literally tiny. Independent bottlers these days are moving much, much more towards small batch. I'm going to put up a wee bit of a benchmark here. You could call this small batch. It's not really small batch. It's medium batch. But it's certainly a branded product made by an independent bottler from independently sourced stocks. We've got the ubiquitous, everybody recognizes this, Compass Box Orchard House. Came onto the market, and I think 2021 appeared. I'm going from memory right now. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But when it appeared, everybody went nuts for it, or a lot of people went nuts for it. Some people found it quite youthful and spirity and quite challenging. A lot of people found it really summery and complex and interesting, and especially they liked the idea that there was a wee bit of smoke hidden in the background too. It did very, very well. It launched about £40, £42, and it's still roughly that price today. Again, RRP and bricks and mortar and things are going to be a wee bit more expensive, but you're still picking up Compass Box for mid-40s. It's not increased too much. I have to say it's quite a popular wee bottle on my shelf, but I'm putting this over here as the benchmark, not because I think it's my pick. I think it's interesting what's happening in independent bottling today. And if we compare it against this one that was widely celebrated when it was launched a couple of years ago, it might be interesting for this to shed a bit of contrast on what's happening in 2024. Mid-40s, 46% ABV, non-age statement, but a wonderfully made, very, very specifically designed product that's proved very, very popular with a lot of whiskey fans. But as far as independent bottlings go, Compass Box remain an independent bottler. They're not distilling any of their own product. And even if they did, what goes into that bottle is independently sourced. There are so many people doing a similar thing these days. What I need to point out is the Orchard House is a blended malt. Now, there's no problem. It's only a good thing that it's a blended malt. That means that they've been taking malt from different distilleries, different single malts from different single locations in order to put together that product. What's happening from independent bottlers more and more today than what we've ever seen in the past, it's always been happening. Think of Gordon and MacPhail's distillery labels, or Discovery Series as you know them as today, Connoisseur's Choice, or whatever it may be. For the most part, unless it was, they said on the label, single cask, for the most part, these were vatted. These were small batch releases. Think of Douglas Laing's Provenance or a multitude of others. Unless it's got a single cask detail on there, it's going to be a small batch release from Indies. But we've seen more and more and more of it happening recently. And that makes sense because as single malt whiskey and whiskey appreciation generally gets bigger and bigger and is enjoyed by bigger regions and bigger areas, and there's a lot more export involved, then it just makes sense for them to put things together to craft something, make more of it, rather than trying to distribute single casks across continents or planets, right? It's really, really tough. Small batch today is more popular than it's ever been. Some people are doing it very, very well. Some people are doing it very, very fairly. And some people are being very successful at it. I think it's interesting to see. Tommy Almer is saying, one of the things I like about independent bottling, there is no expectation of it being repeatable. Well, that's true. But some of them, that Orchard House is very much designed to be something that can be kind of repeated. There are going to be batches and there will be flavor drift and batch variation as time goes on, but they're trying to make something that's resellable again, right? Somebody can drain an Orchard House and go back and buy another bottle and have more or less the same experience, which is a tricky thing to do with malt whiskey. Single casks, absolutely. It's not repeatable. It's not easy to repeat. However, small batch, medium batch, such as that Orchard House, is a wee bit different. I've shared a bottle of this, and this is a heavy caveat on this one, okay, because it's the vPub and we talk about natural presentation, natural. This product on the back, if I turn it around, it does clearly say in capital letters, natural colour, fantastic. It doesn't have an age statement on it. It does tell us the distillery that it's from. It is 44.5% ABV, which is a designed alcohol right across the range, the entire range. And they will bring this out different each time. So the one that I've opened in front of the vPub before is this one. This is Cask Craft is the series name from Murray McDavid Independent Bottlers. These are not blended malts. These are single malts. But this one is a Madeira finish. You can see this one. It says down here in small writing, linkwood, in larger writing, fruity and sweet. So the Madeira finish, fruity and sweet style is what they're trying to put together here. What I've picked up this time, by the way, there's another Madeira cask out there that's available at the moment, and I think it's still called fruity and sweet, but in that small writing, instead of linkwood, it says Inchgour. But they've gone for the same profile, and this is how they're doing it, but they're bringing a wee bit of transparency into things. 44.5% ABV is a tough thing for me to fathom out. Why? Well, maybe that 1.5% ABV was enough for them to manage the price point. Bottling plants, as it turns out, tend not to charge for chill filtration. The liquid is going through the same equipment anyway, so the toggle of what temperature you're going to set the liquid to in order to chill filter it is just a specification. something that a tick box or a preference as you're putting the whiskey together. So putting the whiskey out there at 44.5% ABV means you're going to select the chill filtration thing below 45.7 or thereabouts ABV, depending on ambient temperature and lots of things like that. Might mean that you're going to get some clouding in the whiskey, usually through transportation, storage on the shelf, or when you pour it over ice, or all of these things. Or if you mix it with cool water as you drink it as a dram, you're going to get clouding, and that can be off-putting, and people see it as a flaw in the whiskey. As enthusiasts, we love to see a wee bit of clouding in the whiskey because we know it verifies that idea that it's natural whiskey, that it's not had anything stripped from it. Because if you take those things that cloud the whiskey out of the whiskey, those fats, those oils, what you're actually removing are things that contribute to texture and flavour. I'm not suggesting, and I never would, that if I held a non-chill filtered whiskey alongside a chill filtered whiskey, I'd immediately be able to nose and taste them and tell you the difference. I like to think that sometimes I would, and maybe over 100 samples I would maybe hit more than 50%, but that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. The fact that it's happening is bad enough. And over the course of our experience as whiskey enthusiasts, we look at what we collect on the shelves. We look at the whiskies that's really engaging us, the things that we truly love, inevitably end up to be hugely weighted towards natural whiskey. We don't like when people add colour to our whiskey. That's fakery. And we don't like when it's stripped and things are removed from it just for the sake of cosmetics. That's fakery. We like when it's natural. However, let's park that for a second, because in this Cask Craft series from Murray McDavid, what they've tried to do is go against the grain in terms of price. Here we can see this is not Madeira, this is bourbon cask here. This is creamy and sweet is the range that the vibe they're going for here. And this one is from a Thrusk. This is another Speyside distillery, one of Diageo's workhorses. The reason I'm highlighting these whiskies to you, can you imagine the challenge that retailers have had in the last 3 or 4 years as their kind of casual whiskey drinking punters come in the door, maybe tourists, maybe passers-by, maybe that kind of thing, as they come in and they're just looking to pick up a nice wee bottle of whiskey to keep on the side, a nice wee bottle of whiskey to travel with, to give as a gift, whatever it may be, and they look at the prices. And they're suddenly choked that there's virtually nothing that they can afford for what they managed to afford once upon a time not so long ago. It's difficult for the retailers to constantly have that discussion over price. It's really, really the price fatigue discussion that must be in retail outlets everywhere must be one of the most difficult parts of the job. So when Murray McDavid come across with a range like Cask Craft and are able to price it from the late 20s to the late 30s and give a full range of flavour, it's actually a really well-conceived product. 1.5% more ABV though, come on. Would it have been that hard? You're not going to tell me that it's easier for them to sip the whiskey at 44.5 over 46. Why wouldn't they put it out at just 43 if that was what they were after, or 40? Why 44.5? Regardless. This Madeira cask one, you might remember, I had this featured on a previous vPub. I picked this up for, I think, going from memory, about £28. And this one here, the Thrusk bourbon finish, no age statement on this. We don't know what age it is. I managed to pick this up for somewhere in the order of £34. Very, very inexpensive single malt whiskey. The whiskey I was sipping, in contrast with the Glencadam 10 before I went live tonight, was this Madeira cask. And the Glencadam 10 was able to expose quite a lot of youthfulness in this that wasn't obvious when I was sipping it in isolation. Quite an amazing thing. Just sipping a 10-year-old whiskey suddenly brought out a kind of bitterness and a kind of rawness and a kind of jaggedness to it. that wasn't obvious as I was sipping this. What they're doing here is that I think that they're taking quite young whiskey, they're putting it out there at 44.5% ABV, and they're using the casks, in some cases very active casks, just to kind of switch up the flavour spectrum and give very, very different colours of flavour throughout the range. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's a great idea, it really is. I think that they could have just kept everything so much more kind of textured and flavoured if they kept it at 46. I don't want to beat the horse to death. When it's already dead. Do you know what this is reminiscent of? A wee bit. The Flora and Fauna series, which I am a fan of. It's one of my guilty pleasures, Diageo's Flora and Fauna series. Really well crafted, good quality whiskies, always put together very well. You get the sense that the vatting is always pretty careful, but you're always a wee bit disappointed that you're sipping it at 43%, that lighter ABV. The difference between this and the Flora and Fauna series is you're paying £50 to £60 for Flora and Fauna, sometimes more for some of them. The Benrinnes, the Dillion is going to be more expensive than that. But you're able to pick this up closer to £30. There are very few single malt whiskies out there that's in the £30 price range. That's what Murray McDavid have been able to do. This is very new. I don't even think this range is 2 years old. I think that it's pretty huge in scale. I think there's a lot of this out there. I see it everywhere. I see it being promoted at festivals. I see it on retailers. I see it online retail. Don't see a lot of people talking about it on social media. I suspect that this is not pointed at us. This is coming in to cater for those people that still want to have a tasty glass of whiskey, and they used to be able to afford their 10-year-old and 12-year-old product £30 to £35, but that's been taken away from them. There's a flavour range in here at that price point. Is it petty of me to call them out for dropping that 1.5%? Yes. Am I going to continue to do so? Yes. It just should have been out there at 46. Maybe it would have cost £1 a bottle more. Maybe the margins are so razor thin that they just couldn't stretch the 46% ABV, and they couldn't let it just be filtered at ambient temperature. They just couldn't do that. They could have done that. They could have easily done that. Somebody made a decision somewhere, and it ended up at 44.5. That said, I've got 2 bottles of it in the collection now. And this is a nice wee sip, this a Thrusk. Cheers. There are some producers that are doing better with higher ABV stuff, and I'm going to get to them. No Rolex is in. Good to see you, No Rolex. I've seen you in a couple of times and I've missed you, and I've just skipped past and not picked up your name. It's nice to see you. And he's saying James Eady Trademark X is a great blend, non-chill filtered natural colour. I've actually got it on the shelf here and I'm getting through it. I must be enjoying it. No Rolex. I do think I would maybe be tempted to go for McLean's Nose over it, but that's just a personal preference. And although a lot of people out there would prefer the sweetness of this and be put off a wee bit more by the more kind of outdoorsy, peaty quality of McLean's Nose. But it's a good wee blend. Absolutely. Good to see you, Ian. Warren Tanner is saying, that's me away. Dinner with the family beckons. Cheers for the warm welcome. And my first live vPub will catch the rest on the replay. Warner, now that you're back on the replay, it's nice to welcome you again, buddy. Nice to have had you in live too. Brian Stormont is saying, I love these Murray McDavid releases. Unreal value. And I don't mind the ABV, but get your concern on it. Their Benrinnes is amazing. But what's amazing is that it's going to be Benrinnes 1 release, and then they're going to bring out the exact same flavor profile, but it's going to be a different distillery behind it. I think that's what they're going for here, Brian. So it's interesting that you've connected with it and enjoying it. Gordon Brighill Burn, saying, hi Roy, hi all. Late to the party tonight, Craigellachie 13 Amriat finish on the go for me just now. Cheers. So that's this Craigellachie 13 that I started with. It's just out of shot tonight. I didn't mean to put it out of shot, sorry. The Bass Armagnac version of that. A lot of people love it. Greg's Whiskey Guide, Greg in Paris is saying, like I said in the video, Aquavitae, for instance, a lot of French distilleries, and it's also indeed a matter of price and taxes ABV wise, do use weird numbers for their bottling. 41, 42, 43. Oh, okay, 45, etc. Okay, is that ABV? Yeah. Falscraft is saying 1.5% more ABV equals 8 higher price, choose your currency. I don't know what that means. 1.5% more ABV. Okay. €8, $8, £8 higher for 1.5% ABV. I'm going to take you on that and show you some examples how I don't think it needs to be the case. 8. Whiskey Weekend Dram Harrow saying, tasting this Oche at the Drams Under the Stars during the Spirit of Speyside Festival Aquavitae, it made a very good starting whiskey. Okay, is that the Thrusk I'm talking about? Or when you say Oche, we would tend to Auchentoshan's Oche. Maybe you're talking about the Thrusk that I've just held up to you there. So let's move on then and talk about what Greg was mentioning there. Let's talk about what Klaus was just mentioning there. Let's talk about taking these small batch indies and upping the ABV into where we like them to be. Cask strength releases. But what about cask strength releases from indies? Well, I'm going to show you this one quickly because it deserves a mention. It's probably the best bang for your buck cask strength whiskey that you can buy right now. And I hope that it's wide enough for most of you to get your hands on this. There are different cask versions of this. There are different vintages. There are different age statements. There are so many releases. But I'm just going to share with you right now Old Perth. This is the cask strength, the standard cask strength release. Now this one happens to be 58.6% ABV. I don't know which batch this one is, but it tends to be quite a wide, quite a large outturn. I think it's a fantastic, great, cracking value bottle. I'm always struck how heavy the glass is on these bottles. Make the glass a wee bit lighter, make it a wee cheaper again. But I was able to pick this up for £46. It was on offer, definitely, but it can often drop down to that. It's typically around 50 quid. Now, Old Perth is a blended malt whiskey. It's not a single malt. That should put you off. Why? For no reason, no rational reason whatsoever. Maybe you're a purist and you want to know what distillery you're sipping from. Maybe you want to kind of go a wee bit deeper. I'm just pouring a wee teaspoon of this one just to try it and remind myself again. I remember this being really quite cask forward and lots of flavour. I'm obviously enjoying it. The level always betrays how much you're enjoying a bottle, right? Oh my goodness. It's kind of reminiscent in a lot of ways of that Virgin Oak Deanston earlier tonight. Lots of fruit, lots of spice. But the thing that the prevalent thing that hits first is kind of a boiled confectionery note. Boiled sweets. There's a plumminess to it, like jams. Warm jam, like your cooking jam, that kind of thing. Strawberry note with seeds, whatever that means. Kind of summer ripe red fruits. Cheers. I think it's amazing. Oh, wow. That's much softer than I expected, much easier. Again, it's that blended malt. I'm reaching for another teaspoon. It's that blended malt experience, isn't it? It's like what they're able to do by blending it. They're able to kind of, when a single malt is just going to be what it is, but a blended malt, they're able to kind of shape things a little bit and design things. This is much more, it arrives in a much more polite fashion, let's say. There is no way you would sip this in a flight and pick that out as 58.6% ABV. That is cracking value sipping. Quite amazing. But I think I've got something that's even better value. It's appeared on the vPub before, but deserves to be repeated. Murray McDavid are doing great things at the moment. Aquavite, says Ben. And Gav's Drams is saying hello. Roy, just home from a Cadenheads tasting at the Belfry Bar. Gav, I'm at the Belfry on the 30th of June, which is a week on Sunday, I think. I'm hoping to bump into a few folk there. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to the Belfry yet. Graham Fraser is saying fib whiskey, bottle single cask whiskies, but half the cask is bottled naturally and the other half is finished. There's a lot of that kind of playfulness going on. I know that Decadent are doing it with different ABVs and things like that. Quite interesting. Nice to have you in, Graham, as well. Greg is saying that said. One way to pass this cost question, Aquavite, is to go for undisclosed independent bottling cask strength whiskies, hence the As We Get It series or the 100 proof Port Askegs. As We Get It is from Ian McLeod Distillers, and the 100 proof from Port Askeg is from Elixir, of course, the Isla take. Alistair Gray saying Permashelf Aquavite, possibly most drunk vPub dram over the years. Love it. I think Alistair Gray is talking about the Old Perth there. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, I've newly seen here, thanks to Martin, Old Perth bottlings, all NAS and not at cask strength. Do you recommend them though? Well, I picked up the Palo Cortado there. There's also a 12-year-old here. Everything I've had on the Old Perth so far, I've even got a wine cask. And it's wine is Scotch malt whiskey matured in wine. It's very, very risky for me. I've got probably a 10% success rate with it. It's a good one. It's a good one. I think you get more flexibility when you're putting a blended malt out there. You've got more chance to shape things. And if there's an obvious negative aspect to something, you're able to blend that better, I think. Even a wine cask, come on. Yes, seriously, Jimmy. In fact, I'm going to try and reach for this, but it's right over the back. Even a wine cask. Remember, the level betrays where we're at. I don't know if this is the wine. I know it is. Cask strength, wine, red wine finish. Number 2. By the way, it just so happens that the shelf off to my left here is Lowlands, Campbelltown, and blended malts, which is why I'm able to just kind of reach out and grab this. This is the wine cask version I'm talking about. Cask strength, red wine finished, number 2 limited edition, Old Perth. So this has probably been on the shelf for a couple of years now. Actually, I think this was a birthday gift from cousin Kevin. So you can see red wine. I'm drinking it. And I'm getting through it. But nothing has made it over here yet. Nothing's made it over here to kind of mess with that Orchard House yet, okay? These are not always comparable things, but that 40-odd pounds, I've just taken 10 to 15 pounds off it by showing you the Murray McDavid stuff. I'm going to bring something to you that's priced roughly the same as Orchard House is today. That is ridiculously unbelievable. Almost pinch yourself. This can't be happening. Good value. I remember where the shelves are, says Jimmy. Not since Rosebank. 3 new ones next week, but you'll have to wait until my Aquavite Barflies Facebook post to find out which. Okay, there's a wee conversation going on because Graham's mentioned Aquavite. It's highlighted orange. Let's see if I can surprise anybody here tonight. What am I talking about? Independent, small batch, fantastic value, cask strength. I've got the Ben Nevis over there. It was already on a vPub. Since then, I've picked up another 2, knowing that I should probably be picking up more of these. The only reason I haven't is because they lean heavily towards sherry, and a profile perspective. And I've got a lot of that stuff on the shelf. This is Signatory Vintage, the brand new, in the last 6 months or so, 100 proof series that they have released. This is a 11-year-old's Glentalkers here, 100 proof, obviously, you know what the ABV is. And here is the latest one that I've picked up, which is a Linkwood 10-year-old, 100 proof. 100 proof being Imperial proof, which is not a American New World proof, this Imperial proof. So 100 proof is 57.1% ABV. So every single release, that's the Glentalkers. I'm going to keep the Glentalkers sealed. Every single release in this range is 57.1% ABV. What's Amazing to me. Forget the fact that it's whatever distillery it's from, you know, what kind of cask it's been in. It's usually very heavy sherry forward. The Glentochers, I can tell you, is first fill Oloroso. This is bottle number 4066, individually numbered as well. Incredible. This one from Linkwood is not individually numbered this time around. This is aged 10 years, and this is from second fill Oloroso. That's what drew me to the, well, I like Linkwood anyway, but also the fact it was second fill. Lovely glug because it's in a standard tall round bottle. Love it. Easy to fit in the shelves. 57.1% ABV, regardless of whether it's a Glenrothes or a Glentochers or a Ben Nevis or a Linkwood or whatever it is that you pick up, somewhere in the order of £45, maybe £48, £49, maybe £44, £43, but that's the price point of this. This is, well, it's not cask strength because it's obviously, it's set, everything is at 57.1% ABV, but it's up there. It's you know, for all intents and purposes, it's cask strength whiskey for 45 quid. And it's a new product line that's been devised in the last 6 months. This is literally 2 fingers up to everything else that's happening in whiskey right now. And that colour, that price point, those specs, everything else about it, all natural, by the way, of course it is. It's going to fly off shelves everywhere where it's available and put out at the price point. Not every producer can do this, I understand. This is the shot of adrenaline that's needed to correct the overswing of what's happened in prices. This Linkwood, I'm nosing it as a neck pour for the first time tonight. It's a little bit shy, if I'm honest. A little bit of treacle. A little bit of treacle and kind of sweet brown sugars, Scottish tablet, those kind of notes. Linkwood is a strange one. Linkwood can go in most casks. It does pretty well. But I think it's not difficult to crush the Linkwood kind of spirit style. I think they've used Linkwood because there's a lot of Linkwood around, rather than how good Linkwood goes with a sherry cask. That said, this is second fill, but you can see 10 years old, a lot of colour here. All I got on the nose was the kind of sugar and the sweetness. The first sip, you just get a blast of red fruit. Berries, red berries, jam, raspberries, strawberries, huge blast of fruit, sweet red apple, fruity, fruity, fruity. And look, this is just, I don't know if the camera is going to focus on this, but this is one of the nicest presented signatory bottles. Do you see the kind of gold foil, the gold sheen here? The nice cutout of the label. There's a nice, just kind of honest classiness about this bottle. There's a QR code on the back. I don't know where it takes us to. Let's see. Be worth seeing if it's anything worthwhile. No, it doesn't want to. No, it's trying. Open in Chrome. See where the QR takes us to. Oh, it takes us to somewhere in Italy. Why is it taking us to somewhere in Italy? Oh, it's a recycling label for the Italian market. This isn't Ardnamurchan. This isn't them using QR codes in order to give us more information about what's in the bottle. No, this is an export label for recycling. Fantastic. Yeah, we can forgive that, no problem. It's a good thing to have on there. 10-year-old, second fill, Oloroso, 2013 vintage Linkwood. £45. So it's full on sherry blast, fruity flavoured single malt Scotch whiskey at 57.1% ABV for the same price, whoops, as our Compass Box Orchard House. I cannot fathom how they're doing it, but it tells me, probably because of the stocks the signatories are sitting on, it tells me that it's possible. Gerald Cascagna is saying that Glentockers is a banger. I almost opened it, Gerald, but I kept it sealed. I feel like I've welcomed you before, but if I haven't, welcome, Gerald. It's nice to have you in. Might be the first time. Rob Halford's here. Good to see you, Rob. Here we go. Linkwood was already in my basket. Do your worst. See for 45 quid, Rob. There is just nothing to... If you're going to buy it just to sit it on the shelf, just for it to over-accumulate with everything else, just leave it. Don't bother. Let somebody else pick it up. If you're going to buy it because you like the style, you're in the mood for it, and it's your type of drinking whiskey, know that that's exactly what this is designed for. It's the antithesis of all the badness that's happened in whiskey in recent years. The cost of casks, the cost of bottles, specifically those higher ABV, rich kind of sherry cask styles. This is the antidote to all of that. If you're going to buy it, to gift it, to open it, to share it, to sit and drink it, go right ahead. Buy two. Linkwood, Glentockers, Ben Nevis, Glenrothes, whichever one it is. Klitz is saying Whiskey Tales Andre released a video today stating that he no longer works for Signatory or Edredar. Too bad. I'll really miss his additional info and releases. Love the 100 proof Kalila 8. So they had a Kalila 8-year-old in this series as well. That's interesting that Andre no longer works for Signatory. I wonder what's happened there. Hellswood is saying the Signature Ventures Reg Label small batch releases are fabulous too and great value for money. And Tim Dorpass Whiskey saying, hello, wonderful whiskey folk. Just home from work and happy to be here live. Love those Signatory 100 proof bottles. Tim is in the west coast of the US and he's been able to get them. Signatory setting standards sometimes ones others can't follow. I think that there's a lot of truth in that class. I think that there's a lot of it based on the stocks that they have. But we have to judge the whiskey landscape based on the money that we have, what's available in the wallet. It's almost like a wee bit like the argument of we want to support local retailers that are in bricks and mortar as much as we possibly can, right up until you speak to somebody who doesn't live next to a bricks and mortar retailer, or that simply can't afford the premium of doing that. When there's so many really, really tempting offers being dropped into their email inbox every week from lots of other places. We can't judge that all of a sudden. It's one of the reasons why recent vPubs have suddenly kind of switched a little bit and looked back towards these really kind of inexpensive, accessible mass market bottlings. And believe me, I'm interested in doing a wee bit more of that in the future, because for me to sit here and commentate on these that I'm sharing with you tonight, I probably need to have a bit of an idea what's happening there too. And it's amazing how many people have £25 available to spend on whiskey. And they're really excited to pick up a bottle. £40 is their budget for the entire month to spend on whiskey. Maybe they can save up for 2 months and buy something really special. But often they're kind of looking for something like this, so that they can just participate with everyone else. Sometimes people have all of the money to spend on whiskey, but they're just really careful and they don't want to spend money just for the sake of it. It's nice to cover it all. Ian Bruce is saying the hikes by governments on duty is driving up prices and starting to affect and lowering production for breweries in Australia. I think spirits could be the next with inflation increases. We've already seen enough of that. I don't see how there's room for much more of it. Ian here, my goodness. Chris Polak is saying, Andre said in his vlog he wanted to leave and there is no bad blood between them. So he's obviously got his eye on something new. I think it might have been quite difficult for a German guy to come and settle in a really remote part of Scotland too. It'll be interesting to catch up with Andre. Per Christensen is here. Good to see you. Hi, Roy. I made it home after 15 hours of gin distillation, having 100 proof Tullibardine after a long day. Sounds like a good day's work to me, Per. It's nice to welcome you in, and I'm glad that you're enjoying one of the. Obviously, you've got the Tully release, and I happen to have the Linkwood in the glass. Cheers, Per. Cheers, Ian and Chris. All right, how are we getting on? Just like we did with the official releases tonight, we're going to move on to talk about the new distilleries, new releases. They're going to save us, aren't they, in the future? But right now, they're all a wee bit expensive, aren't they? Some of the whiskies I've been sharing with you tonight are large scale, huge outturns, tens of thousands of bottles. Economies of scale. They're looking to get the whiskey in as many places of distribution that they possibly can, get the brand in front of as many people as they can. Great. Other things are really quite small batch, really small batch, genuinely small batch, sub 10,000 bottles, sometimes just 1,000 or 2,000 bottles. I'm not going to share any single cask type stuff with you tonight. There's just a couple of hundred. But generally speaking, some of them can be very, very small. There's a general rule of thumb that the large scale stuff is easier to get the margins down very, very tight. Make it a good value, good price to engagement proposition, and get it out there so that we can all get hold of it wherever we may be and pick it up at a decent price. But as those scales drop, it's much, much harder to do that, and the price tends to be more expensive. So for instance, if you went in and you picked up a bottle of Ben Romac and you were able to buy it for £50, and on the same shelf there was a single cask, wherever your country may be, Denmark exclusive, and you picked that up off the shelf and you went up to pay for that too, your single cask, Denmark exclusive, very small outturn is going to be 50% more expensive than the core range you've picked up off the shelf, at least. Sometimes even more. It's just the way that it is. Hopefully you'll get a bit more ABV, you'll get something up much more exclusive, all of those things. But the smaller scale, it's not exclusive to whiskey, it's just going to be how it is. I get the sense, though, with the next bottle I'm going to share with you tonight, that there was a meeting in a boardroom somewhere where they looked at this thing and they decided, look, how much should this be? And they decided what they could probably get away with charging for this thing. And then they said, no. Because there's a culture, because there's an ethos, because there's a belief, because they have ethics, because there's a philosophy along with the brand and the product. Culture's probably the best word, actually. And they say, no, there's only 6,000 bottles of this, but we're still going to put it out there at 50 quid. There's only one producer thinking that way right now, and it is Ardnamurchan. This is the Midgie, and I'll hold the Midgie right up to the camera. Actually, when you get it in your hand, this Midgie is actually much nicer in the flesh. It's actually quite glossy. Ardnamurchan, tongue-in-cheek, have celebrated local wildlife of the Western Highlands. And of course, Dalmore have their big shiny silver stag, as well as Glenfiddich and lots of other brands out there. Arran have their eagles. Ardnamurchan were kind of thinking about a way that they could come up with celebrating the local wildlife, and tongue-in-cheek, they've gone ahead and have done that. Look at the spludged midges on the back of the bottle. All those wee black dots. Anybody that's ever experienced a Western Highland midgie attack will know why it's so significant. and such a big deal in the west of Scotland. Central Belt of Scotland, Lowland Scotland, in fact, most of Scotland, if you're near any kind of, especially still water on a kind of damp, humid night with not a lot of breeze around, you need to be protected from these things. They are invisible death. They are terror with wings. I think it's real fun that they've brought out this release. We believe that it's going to be an annual release. The first release, this one that I'm holding in my hands right now, is UK exclusive, 6,000 bottles. They've bumped the ABV up here, 48% ABV, giving us a bit more in terms of alcohol in the bottle. But what's super interesting, what they've actually done here, is they've really played with the Ardnamurchan makeup. They've brought along some, as well as using peated and unpeated sherry and bourbon casks, they've also brought along some Sauterne and some Madeira casks in the mix too. Sauterne and Madeira, interesting. I managed to get a wee sample of this as it was launched. I picked up a bottle straight away and opened it with a pal and left it with them because they loved it. They gifted it to them. So this is my second bottle. Annoyingly, I scanned the barcode on the first bottle I had and I had a really low number, like, I don't know, 200 and something. I should scan this one actually and see what this is. This is a recent purchase from my local retailer. £53 maybe I paid for this one. So this is a true barcode scan. So it takes me to the Ardnamurchan website. Gives me all the details. I think it tells me the bottle number on this. Yes, my bottle number. Oh, this is another low number. This is 288. It's very similar to the last one I had. Scan your bottle. Are all the bottles in 200? I don't think so. So it's got everything that you want to know. It'll tell you about Ardnamurchan themselves and their tasting notes. It'll give you the option to discover complete traceability, and it'll also take you to a wee link about collaboration. If you click on the traceability link, it'll take you to the barley, the mashing, fermentation, distillation, maturation. This is beyond, we've gone beyond the names of the people who actually bottled it. But I'll pull out the maturation thing here, see the cask data for this batch, and it'll bring us to a PDF that lists all of the casks for this particular batch. Ex-bourbon, a sherry cask, Sauterne, Madeira. It's got the vintages, it's got the years on it here. I can tell you that the youngest in this looks like being 6 years old, and there's some older stock in the mix too. If you pick up a bottle of the Midgie, please take a moment to scan your QR code. Immediately you're brought to it's so coastal, it's ridiculous. And I know that Ardnamurchan has become known for those elements, and by the power of suggestion, you're going to be looking for that. But it's just so obvious. It's so seaside, seashell, mineralic, stones and pebbles, and there's a wee bit of smoke in this, but it's just a savoury lick. This has got toffee sweets. We've got salted caramel type notes in here tonight. Gooseberries. A tartness to it. Just. And so flavorful. I've just come off of a big, heavy-hitting sherry cask matured, 57.1% ABV liquid. And this is just full of flavour. A bit of eucalyptus there. Honeys. I hold this up to you tonight. Ardnamurchan single casks are pricey, 85, 90, 95 pounds. To go down to that small scale, to take one cask, to do a special project, special label, everything for one cask is going to be an expensive thing, and a very exclusive and rare thing as well. The single casks are pricey. Everything else they do Even their super in-demand things like their Paul Lanois releases, Sherry cask, their Madeira cask, their cask strength, their standard AD release even, £45. The cask strength is £65. They have stayed true to their promise that they will keep the prices in line as their spirit gets older. As I mentioned it earlier in the vPub tonight, Ardnamurchan will be 10 years old. They will have 10-year-old spirit this year in 2024. You can pick up their AD core release at the same price that it was at when I did the last Where's the Value vPub in October of 2020. The price is the same. When they deviate and they bring out a smaller batch, more exclusive release like this, the temptation for any producer would be to put it at an exclusive price, £75, £80, some plucked out the air price. I put it to you that I think Ardnamurchan have sat down with a very sharp pencil and worked out what they actually need to make and charged that and nothing more. How many producers are thinking this way today? How many producers are thinking about not what they can make today, but what they need to be able to make next year, and in 5 years' time, and in 10 years' time? How many people are leading with trust? Ethics are important. That's a 6,000 bottle outturn for a few pounds more than the standard core range. It would be petty to complain about the price. Ben Whiskey with Molly saying 3 days as an adopted son of the Tartan Army has broken me off to bed. Thanks as always. No Scotland, no party. I want to know how your time out there was, Ben. You need to tell me stories of it. Good night, my friend. Recover and recuperate, and we'll see you back here next week. Graham Fraser saying, I found the Midgie very sweet as it's matured in 4 different casks, mainly sweet wines. It's got a wee bit of peat smoke and a wee bit of eucalyptus medicinal toffee sweets, that kind of vibe to it too. There is a wee bit of sweetness here. I wouldn't call this a sweet whiskey. The Arran 10-year-old, I would call it a sweet whiskey. There is sweetness though. Hellswood is saying, for all the hype surrounding Ardnamurchan, we've yet to be disappointed with any of their whiskies. Fabulous stuff. Glad you're enjoying it. And I know that hype's an easy word to use, and in the context that you're using it, Helen, it's right to say hype, and I understand what you're getting at. But hype actually means when something is artificially inflated to be something more than it actually is. With Ardnamurchan, what we're getting is a lot of kind of repetition, a lot of consensus, a lot of people saying, oh, and even people that come along and go, oh, this Ardnamurchan, I'm hearing a lot, and then they try it and they say, oh, yeah, that's right. Anyway, before we get to the quiz at the end tonight, cheers, everyone. My pal, A Grain of Malt, is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 50 months. He's saying, aloha, Barflies. Happy midsummer. Nice to have you in, my friend. How are you doing? That's Graham in Sweden. Sorry, not Graham. That's James in Sweden. Sorry, James. Before I get to the quiz at the end tonight, I've got one last category to share with you, and that's to talk about I mean, I'm going to hold up one thing that's absolutely untouchable when it comes to value, but that's right at the end of the night. But I'm going to talk about what if you don't want to spend £50. Almost everything that we've focused on tonight has been in that kind of just south of £50, just a wee bit north of £50 price bracket. What if you are celebrating? What if you want something a wee bit special? What if you want something with a decent amount of age on it? Are you priced out? Are you going to have difficulty being able to treat yourself to something a little bit more mature? The thing that Scotch whisky specifically is celebrated for, the fact that it's been around for a long time, the fact that it ages very, very well in quiet, cold, damp, humid environments, right? It's one of the unique things that Scotch whisky has over most other whisky categories. There's mature stock out there. The problem with it is today in 2024, it's very difficult for any of us to afford it. Jimmy Legge saying, I look forward to my first positive experience with Ardna. Jimmy, maybe what I need to do is just get you in the car and take you up there when you're over in September. That could be a fun little distraction, right? Anyway, where do we go? What do we do? Well, there are still places to go. Let's look at the thing. I looked at vPub recently, and we talked about the 18-year-old releases, and we had all the prices, and we had that stretch, that bar chart with the really expensive stuff up at the top, like the Macallans and things. And we had all of these really kind of good, interesting 18-year-olds. And these appeared there. I don't have this. The Speyburn 18 is the one that I need to have up on screen tonight, but I don't have one on the shelf. Speyburn 18, you can still pick up for sometimes in the 70s, but 80 to 85 pounds for Speyburn 18. Compared to all the other 18-year-olds that are out there right now, that's absolutely stunning value. And it's amazing that I haven't replaced my bottle. I've replaced the 15. I love that too. Here's one. This is the old branding. This is Loch Lomond's 18-year-old. Fully natural, 46% ABV. Gorgeous, rich, dark, industrial, challenging. Some people might even go funky style flavor whiskey. Now, this is the older branding. I've tried a pour of the much more recent branding, and it's brighter, lighter, and fresher than this specific one. But it still tastes every bit like an 18-year-old take on Loch Lomond. £85 typical retail for an 18-year-old today. What if you really want something that is quite spectacular? What if you want something that's really, I've got one clean glass here. What if you want something that is really quite different? Something special? Well, what would mark it as special? What about something that has been scored 9 out of 10 on Dramface? I didn't write the article. This was given 9 out of 10. Wow. Quiet, subtle, elegant. Just a different lane change to everything I've been sipping tonight. Mature. It's definitely got a kind of almost dunnage quality about it. There's a way, it's difficult to articulate age sometimes, but it's just obviously much more mature. Still under £100 right now. I hope it stays there. Cracking Highland whiskey. Tomatin's 18-year-old Oloroso. Don't consider this to be Oloroso heavy. If you're into your sherry bombs, this is much more balanced. You get the sense that there's a lot of refill Oloroso in this, so much nuttiness, almost like an almond marzipan-y thing. Maybe not, maybe hazelnutty nuttiness. It says Oloroso on the label. The flavor profile of this is much more closer to Amontillado, Amontillado type style, maybe even Manzanilla, that kind of lighter sherry style, because it's balanced, sub £100. But what if you really want to push the boat out? What if you really want to treat people? What if you really want to talk about how marvellous Scotch whisky can be? I'm going to need another glass. I've got a tulip-shaped glass for this one. And I'm going to talk about a bottler that's one of the best bottlers out there right now. Genuinely one of the best. And I don't just mean that they're going to always bottle something good. Everything they bottle seems to have this intrinsic fair price thing alongside it. It means that it's ridiculously in demand. Great liquid, great price, easy to trust. What I'm opening right now, I spent a lot of money on. This cost me almost £100. But the age of this whiskey is 3 decades ago. Actually, this is a 19 1988 vintage whiskey from the Thompson brothers. I'll caveat it. It's a grain whiskey. This is Invergordon. I should tilt it that way so that you can read it right. Single grain Scotch whiskey, 1988, 30 years old, 311 bottles. There are a few different vintages of, well, similar labels, slightly different artwork on the labels here, but there's a few different vintages of Invergordon single grain from the Thompson brothers. I suspect that it's because it's from the Thompson brothers, it doesn't really matter which one you go for. It's probably going to be a cracker. I'm opening £100 worth of whiskey in front of you right now. It's a special treat. It's a special thing. I can't think of better company that I'd want to sip it in, right? And let me ask you, where could you buy 30-year-old 1988 vintage whiskey for anything like that price today? My goodness. So much sharper, much more focused than I imagined. I was looking for that kind of fusty thing that comes with old grain. It's almost like a grapey note, an acidic note, an olive oil note even. Very shy, very quiet. This is a neck pour, a caveat. Oh, of course I have to. Very delicate, very elegant, but sweet. Candy floss, sugar mice. Lightly floral, white flowers. Melon, honeydew melon, sweet honeydew melon. 1988. What were you doing in 1988? Not malt whiskey. Not malt whiskey. Tablet, sweet tablet. Not too sweet, not sickly, not cloying. There's enough to offset it. An acidity, balance, a sharpness, a fruit thing cuts through. Grain whiskey is not for everyone. It's lighter on the mouthfeel. It's lighter on the palate. It's a different thing from malt. The age is here, but it's restrained. It's quiet. It's elegance. That solventy thing that Helen was talking about earlier, she said glue. You can find it here. It's there with grain whiskey, that acetone note. It's definitely here, along with sweet, ripe fruit. It's quite a delicate thing. It's almost kind of brittle. 30 years old. Where's the value? I think the value lies in a little bit us opening up our ideas. Let's stay on the theme of the Thompson brothers. For sub £40, they're bringing us this SRV 5 8-year-old. 36, 37, 38 pounds, that order. It's going to change each time. Every batch is going to be a wee bit different because the VAT, the station road VAT, SRV, every time that they empty it, they leave enough in it. So when they top up, it's going to get older and older and older. Typical Solera style. But the one that's going to really, and it's not going to be around forever, the best value, absolutely untouchable, never failed for anybody I've poured it for. to the point that I have now bought backups to my backup of this bottle because I need it to be around. One day we are going to be sitting around together in company and saying, do you remember when the Thompson brothers were putting out a 35 quid bottle of this quality? They're TB BSW 46% blended Scotch whisky. This is malt and grain in this bottle. £35. This beat Macallan 12-year-old sherry oak on a vPub blind. It's 90 quid a bottle. You could buy almost 3 of these for one bottle of Macallan. If you're happy with the 46% ABV experience, most of us are most of the time, a sherry cask, sherry flavoured, sherry forward whiskey for this price point at this quality is an anomaly. This is an anomaly. It is not going to be around forever. It's here now. This is one of the bottles that we'll talk about in future, and we'll wax lyrical about it. I know it's made it to Europe. I know it's made it to certain areas of the North America. I know that it's out there. I know that you've been able to get your hands on this. Don't overpay. Don't pay too much. This is 35, 37, 38 pounds worth of whiskey. That's what it is. Some places have it a bit cheaper. Don't pay any more than that. But if you can get it for that price, and we ask where the value is in 2024, I don't think it's possible to come anywhere close to that. I really don't. And it fits everybody's needs. I want a sherry bomb. I want a flavour bomb. I want an integrity whiskey. I want an affordable whiskey. I want a decadent whiskey. I want a VIP whiskey. I want something I can share. I want something I can treat myself with. It literally does everything. There is no other whiskey that can beat it today in 2024. It's not going to be around forever. My pal Per has joined the Aquavitae Barflies. Thank you very much, Per. Thank you for your support. And Benny Fries, my pal. Just a wee hi. Hope you and the Barflies are all well, Roy. Too rare on a live stream for me these days, so really enjoying when I can actually be here. Per, my friend, it's wonderful to welcome you in whenever you can make it. Cheers to you, Benny. Nice to have you, and thank you for your dram. Okay, how are we doing? 2 hours 17. I knew it was going to be a wee bit of a longer one tonight. I had quite a lot of bottles to get through. Surrounded by bottles here tonight. But I think the one that has to go front and centre and take the plaudits for where's the value in 2024. And it is going to be a nostalgia story in the years ahead. There is no doubt about it. This cannot last forever. But we can get it. We can get it here right now. And it's fabulous, fabulous stuff. Per has also purchased Aquavitae memberships for 10 other folk. Very generous of you too, Per. Thank you, my friend. Nice to have you. Hey, I'm off tomorrow, says Rob Smith. Keep going. I'm not off tomorrow, but I'm happy to keep going, Rob, for a wee bit longer at least, for the quiz at the end. Listen, the last few vPub quiz at the ends have really kind of been switching up and changing. Somebody talked to me about this recently, that what they've worked out is that the formula of the vPub quiz at the end has kind of become quite locked in. Easy, gentle start. If you get to the halfway point at 5 out of 5, you're getting really quite excited. You might be able to qualify and get out of the group stage. And then as the things start to get harder, questions 6, 7, and 8 tend to get a bit trickier. 9, sometimes an asshat. 10, always guaranteed to be an asshat. I like that feel. I like that sense. I like the idea that people can get on board with it. However, I also like to keep it free and easy. So if I've had a lot of tricky quizzes at the end, I'll bring in an easier one. And then if I had a few that have been quite light and easy, I'll shout on Menno, and Menno can come in and sort that situation out too. Listen, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have a bit of fun with it. And I hope that some of you are able to stay a wee while for a wee bit of quiz at the end. It's called Redacted Brothers here in the US. Of course it is, Rick. Thompson Brothers is already a brand, so Redacted Brothers. When you see that, please grab it, whatever it may be. I suspect that you're going to get pretty decent stuff. Jimmy, the picture question is often tricky for me, he says. Well, I wonder if tonight would be tricky for you. What picture did I put in tonight? I think I am in the picture like last week. I was in last week's and I'm in this week's picture too. So I think it might be tricky. Fernando saying, bring the quiz. Fantastic, Fernando. So good to see you. And Lowlander is here too. Sugar Kitty is still here looking after us as one of the moderators right to the end. Mikey Hayes here as well. So good to see you, Mikey. And Whiskey Boy here too. It might be I don't feel, it's not the first time I've welcomed you and Whiskey Boy, right? Fantastic. Anyway, settle down, get comfortable. Remember that the quiz at the end is always multiple choice. Do the very best you can. Even if you're guessing, you've still got a good chance. If you're struggling a wee bit, follow the crowd. The very knowledgeable whiskey folk. Let's bring it in. Good luck, everyone. 10 questions, all multiple choice. Only share the score if you want to. Question 1. Which of the following has an official flora and fauna release? Listen, I know that a lot of you are in a market where you don't have flora and fauna. Just give it your best guess. Trust me. A Thrusk has a flora and fauna release. B, Strathmill has a flora and fauna release. Or C, Glen Spey has a flora and fauna release. Tommy Elmer is saying, wait, people are complaining about the quiz. Well, no, they're not complaining, but I do get feedback. It's never bad. It's always fun. Oh my goodness. Bruce Bernard is saying Thompson Brothers SRV5 is 158 Australian dollars down under. So that puts it about £65, something of that order, Bruce. Oofed. Listen, contextually, you might be paying £65 for most stuff of similar quality. So what I'm saying to you is that if we're paying £38 for it in the UK, it's exceptional at that price point. So you need to kind of extrapolate from there. Jerry Miller is saying, geez, I can't decide. A, no, B, no, C. Matt F, good to see you, Matt. Glenn B. Matt is saying A, Glenn is saying B. Glenn B is saying B. Benny Fries is saying A and C. Chris Pollock is saying A, B, C. And Rob Smith is saying, ouch. Just go with it, Rob. Go with it. Fantastic. Most of you have worked it out already. It's a freebie. Nobody's going home with a donut tonight. All of those, despite they're relatively rarely seen or thought about, but all of those distilleries, those Diageo workhorses, a Thrusk, Strathmill and Glen Spey, can all be purchased as part of the flora and fauna range. Still love that range. A guilty pleasure for sure. Question 2. Oops. Oh. I think I've just given everybody a freebie on question 2, haven't I? And I don't see a way around it. I've obviously messed up the order of the slides tonight. Question 2. Oh dear. How could that have happened? Let's go back to the original and see what's happened on question 2. Yeah, I've just completely passed it. Okay, I'm just going to do it verbally and pretend, or at least make it so that you didn't, the people that weren't looking aren't going to get it. Which of these has a cigar malt release? A, Tom and Tell, B, Tomatin, or C, Tamdhu? You know, normally I would go through and pick up these mistakes. I would catch them and I would fix them so that they didn't go live. It's happened in the past, but it's rare these days. But I've been into the football recently. I've been too distracted by the Denmark-England game tonight and the Italy-Spain game tonight. Or was it England-Denmark earlier? I forget what it was earlier. Yeah, it was the England game tonight, wasn't it? Yes, so there we go. Which of these has a cigar malt, A or C? Now I need to go backwards to let you see that, of course, A, C. Tomatin doesn't have a cigar malt, but Tom and Tell has a cigar malt, and Tamdu has a cigar malt. So you can do what you want to do there. If you feel like you know that, take the point. But I would suggest if I mess up a question in such a way, by the rules of the vPub quiz at the end, everyone gets a freebie. That means that tonight on the 20th of June, 2024, nobody's going to get less than 2 out of 10. The professionalism is not high this evening. Question 3. It's been up on screen for a long time. Which of the following distilleries bottles all of its production on site? You've not seen the answers, or the potential answers yet, so I'll offer you A, Daftmill, B, Kilchoman, or C, Ardnamurchan. Which of those 3 bottles everything it makes on site? Only I could get it wrong when the answer was already shown, says Whiskey Boy. No, it surely didn't happen. But you can't get it wrong because I've messed it up, so you just get a freebie. That Denmark guy scored from actual Denmark. It was an absolute peach of a goal. It's one of those goals that you just couldn't believe what you were seeing when it happened, right? Okay. Which of those, Daftmill, Kilchoman, or Ardnamurchan, bottles everything that it makes on site? Absolutely kicked out the park. You all know that it's Kilchoman. Ardnamurchan and Daftmill are both bottled incidentally in the same place. Kilchoman bottles everything on site. See how many other questions I've messed up in the quiz tonight. According to the label for question 4, which casks were a feature of Ardbeg's Dark Cove release back in 2015? What was a feature of Ardbeg's famous? Everybody talks about the Dark Cove as, it's the last time there was an interesting or good quality Ardbeg special release or limited edition out or committee release, right? What was the feature of the casks for Dark Cove? They were A, dark sherry casks, according to the label, B, dark rum casks, or C, dark wine casks. What was special about Ardbeg's Dark Cove casks? Benny Fries is saying it was unreasonably expensive. The crazy thing is, Benny, if we went back to 2015, it would look remarkably cheap compared to today. I've got a lot of whiskey and a lot of glasses in front of me tonight. I've been laying them down right to left, so hopefully I can backtrack and know what's in the glasses. Matthew Renke is saying, oh, A, going with the crowd. Fernando's saying, don't have that bottle, so I'll go with you guys, A. Lachlan McKenzie is in. Good to see you, Lachlan. Jimmy Jazz is here. Of course you are, Jimmy. Always amazing to see you in, my friend. Nicholas is here. Tom Elmer, Jerry Miller. Seb K is here. Good to see you, Seb. Good to have your company for the quiz at the end. You're all pretty much spot on. Dark, interestingly, dark sherry casks, whatever dark sherry may be. You would imagine PX, perhaps? I don't know. Question 5 is always the picture question. Have a wee look at this. There's 4 reprobates in the shot there. Wally on the left, me, then Craig, then Cousin Kevin, or Let's Talk Whiskey, as he's known these days. But I'm just going to ask you, where are we in this image? Are we in A, Highlands, B, Speyside, or C, Isla? Where are we? And I'll go back just to keep it clear. A, Highlands, B, Speyside, or C, Isla? Big, monstrous, fat still on the left, and a wee dumpy still on the right. Quite unique. Jimmy Legacy, not Springbank. That's the images that he's got imprinted on his head, never to be mistaken any time in the future. A, the Highlands, B, Speyside, or C, Isla? Whiskey Boy saying A, a total guess. you can go with the crowd, Whiskey Boy. Brian Cabanas is saying, late for the vPub. I'll catch the replay later today. Cheers, Barflies. You're never late for the vPub, Brian. That's the whole point of it, my friend. You can pick it up anytime. And Fernando is saying, love the shape of the spirit still. Yeah, that's right. It's almost like a daffodil bulb or something, right? We are at Bunnahabhain, which is on Islay, of course. So absolutely, well, most of you said C, recognise that as Bunnahabhain. So well done. It's going to get tricky from here on in. So Per, celebrating 5 out of 5, along with Rick Johnson, Donald Pass Whiskey, Nicholas, Jerry Miller, Rob Smith, Hell's Wood, Pedro Menezes, Gene Kelly, Seb K, Falsgraf, Malt Brother Ray, Mike Molasses. It's just zipped past. Everybody, it looks like, is on 5 out of 5 so far. Things are going to get a wee bit trickier. Question 6. Which distillery's name appeared on an official Glenmorangie release 2 years before the distillery actually existed? So 2 years before this new distillery was founded, it appeared on the label of a Glenmorangie release. Was it A, Dornoch Distillery, B, Ardross Distillery, or C, Tulvadi Distillery? So what I'm basically saying is there is an official Glenmorangie release out there that has this name on the label. It is either A, Dornoch, B, Ardross, or C, Tulvadi. It's very interesting in Invergordon. A wee bit of a sourness now. 30 years old. Everybody seeming to lean with, well, apart from Benny Fries, who's admitting he's got no clue. Daniel Williams is here. Good to see you, Daniel. Whiskey Slayer is here. Big Ed. Lassie Otsman is here. Good to see you, Lassie. If I go down, I'll be going down with the crowd. A, says Rick Johnson. I can tell you, indeed, it's good to follow the crowd for question 6. Dornoch is a distillery, of course. Thompson Brothers own it, but it was actually first appeared on a bottle of Glenmorangie. I don't know how many other distilleries there this has happened to, but Glenmorangie had a release in 2015 called Dornoch. And it was a couple of years before the Thompson Brothers actually founded the Dornoch Distillery. There's a wee picture of it there. Bright purple, non-age statement. Don't remember how much it was. Didn't buy it. Didn't try it. Or I have no memory of trying it at least. Question 7. England. It's a football theme. Sorry, it's the vPub. It's not a football pub. But England won the World Cup in the same year as which of these distilleries was founded? A, Breval, B, Loch Lomond, C, Tamnavulin. What year did England win the World Cup? Once you've worked that out, which of those distilleries were founded in that same year? Tom Elmer is quite rightly pointing out, so is that tennis. It is the Football World Cup. It's obviously in my head right now, Tom. It's the Euros that's going on right now. It's not the World Cup, it's the European Championships. Mickey is saying, which year did they win the World Cup again? Don't think I've heard it mentioned in the English media at all. Mickey is a Scot living in England, so he's extra sensitized to that, I imagine. Should there be a banana skin, says Seb. So Seb is also an expat Scot. No banana skin, big guy. No banana skin, legitimately. Jimmy Legg is saying it's C. Fernando's saying go for C. Adrian is saying was Deanston also 1966. And Tom is saying, oh, do you mean soccer? Yes. Fantastic. Just having a wee bit of fun, trying to keep it whiskey themed. Graham Fraser is saying C, been there. Pedro is saying that should be an assat there. Yeah, it is a wee bit of an asshack because you need to know the answer to two different things in order to get it. Fair play to you, Pedro. I hope you get it right, big guy. I hope you answered C for Tam na Bhuailin. Loch Lomond was 1965. Breval was 1973. 1966, when England won the World Cup, I've been told. Tam na Bhuailin was founded in the same year. Question 8. What stopped happening at Benrinnes in 1984? What did they stop doing in 1984 at Benrinnes? A. They stopped their in-house malting. B. They stopped direct firing their stills. Or C. They stopped their partial triple distillation. Lots of comfort in the crowd. The wheel's starting to wobble a wee bit. Vasil is here. Good to see you, Vasil. Malt Brother Ray is here. Mike Molasses, first time maybe it's not the first time I've mentioned you tonight, Mike, but it's nice to see you and always amazing to welcome you. Nicholas is here. Always nervous of the names that I miss. Seaweed World, good to see you. Sherry Canarian, fantastic. What stopped happening at Benrinnes in 84? In-house malting stopped. Direct fired stills, partial triple distillation. Wow. Benny Fries is saying, I don't think C, that was 2009 or so. Whiskey Boy saying B, again, I guess. Pedro saying A or B, I'll go with A though, but purely guessing. Direct fired stills, I'm sure they had them at one point. I've no idea when they ceased. I don't have any dates or data for that. Partial triple distillation, yes, 2007, I believe, was when they stopped their partial triple distillation. Their in-house maltings switched from traditional malt floors to Saladin boxes in the 60s, and they kept the Saladin boxes going until 1984, one of the last, if not the last, to have them, or maybe Tamdu. So there you go. In-house malting right up until 1984 for Benrinnes. Be an interesting one if you're lucky enough to ever pick up a Benrinnes that's pre-84 vintage, right? Question 9. What happened in the same year Billy Walker and the Glenallachie Consortium purchased Glenallachie from Chivas Brothers? What happened in that same year? So I'm asking you, it's very recent, isn't it? It's much more recent in time, but it's almost harder. Jimmy Legacy, and why the banana? That's the most likely one. Well, because lots of people know that at some point in the history, Benrinnes switched from partial triple distillation to double distillation. That's the banana. So maybe it just didn't catch you out, Jimmy, which is a good thing. Anyway, 20, whatever this was, Glenallachie was purchased from Pernod by the Glenallachie Consortium, Billy Walker's team. What year was it? It's going to help you with this one. The same year, A, Kilkerran 12-year-old was first released. B, the first vPub was broadcast. Or C, Glendronach's revival was temporarily discontinued. So it's a double ass hat tonight. I'll find a way to make it a wee bit easier for you. Whiskey Boy thinks it's been 10 years-ish. Lassie's saying C. Seb K saying A. Rick Johnson is saying B. Lachlan is saying A, but he's guessing. Tom Elmer, Jimmy Jazz, Chris Bollock, Gene Kelly, Glenn B, Ian Bruce, Bruce Bernard are all saying B. Fernando, Big Ed, Benny Fries, A. No, Benny's saying B as well. Can I call a friend? Yes, Greg, you absolutely can. You've got hundreds of friends in the crowd, in the chat right now, willing to help you out. Geez, these all seem very close together, says Mike Molasses. Absolutely, Mike. It's the penultimate question, and it is an ass hat at the end. It's not the final one, but it's close there. Kilkerran 12-year-old was first released in 2016. The first vPub was broadcast in 2017. It wasn't called the vPub back then, which is why it's in quotation marks, but it's the first Aquavitae live stream was broadcast in 2017. And Glendronach's revival was temporarily discontinued in 2015. Billy Walker and his consortium bought Glenallachie from Pernod Ricard in 2017, the same year that the vPub started. Awful, brutal. I know you hate me. Roy's tipping his hat to Menno on this quiz. It's a good quiz. We'll have Menno back, Jimmy, for a end of summer or just end of season before summer kicks in. He's committed to joining us on the 11th of July. Looking forward to that one as well, because I get to participate. So there we go. We're going to have a final asshat to close out. Let's see who's managed to hold it together for a 9 out of 9, because there are still some of you in there. Gene Kelly, Donner Pass Whiskey. Oh, quite a few. Hell's Wid. Chris Pollack, Rick Johnson, Rob Smith, Falsgraf, Sugar Kitty. My goodness, a lot of you are managing to hold it together. Benny Fries also. Let's see how we're doing for the final asshat at the end. Question 10. How many currently operating Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter T? Currently operating Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter T, according to the Malt Whisky Yearbook. About the same as the number of A. Glenallachie 10-year-old cask strength batch releases. How many are we at for Glenallachie 10-year-old so far? B. About the same as the number of Campbelltown distilleries by the year 2030, if everything goes ahead as planned. Or C. About the same as the number of Islay distilleries today. How many currently operating Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter T? Have at it. Do your best. Graham Fraser, 9 out of 9. Oh no, keep losing signal. Do your best, Graham. Do your best. You can play fully tonight. It's not your picture question that was used, so it's a legitimate one for you. Jimmy Legacy and Eesh. Donner Pass Whiskey is warning the ass hattery. Thank you all so much for staying for the quiz at the end. Absolutely love it. I really do look forward to my Thursday nights. You're a pleasure to hang out with and have a dram with. If the vPub today has anything to say, it's A. Falsgraf is going with A. Ooh, Whiskey Slayer A. Pedro is C. Seb K B. Oh, all over the place. Jimmy Legg is shouting Chininic. I don't know who he's talking to. Oh, he's trying to, of course, trying to remember all the TV pubs. Well, I'll read them out to you. I can tell you that the number of TV pubs are Talisker, Tamdu, Tamnavulan, Chininic, Tobermory, Tomatin, Tomintoul, Torravik, Tormore, Tulvadi, and Tullabarden, which is 11 according to that list in the Scotch Malt Whisky Yearbook. However, there are 10 Glenallachie cask strength batches so far. There are likely to be 6 or 7 Campbelltown distilleries, and there are 11 Islay distilleries today. But I said about. So you get it if you say A or C tonight. Why? Well, Tulvadi is listed in the map at the back of the Malt Whisky Yearbook, but there is no entry for it. There is no entry in the actual book for Tulvadi yet. So there are 10 distilleries in the Malt Whisky Yearbook, but there are actually 11 listed by name. So about is in italics. It's highlighted. About the same number as A and B. I'm trying to be kind. Hopefully that means that one or two of you managed to get your 10 out of 10. Hold on a second. Your 10 out of 10, despite the fact that it was a really, really tricky question to finish on. Here we go. There's lots of celebration happening. Fantastic. Some of you did manage to get it. If you're picking it up in the replay as well, you're welcome to scream just as loudly as everybody else. Sugar Kitty celebrating a 10 out of 10. Congratulations, Sugar Kitty. Amazing. It was not an easy quiz tonight. Donner Pass Whiskey as well. Woohoo. Fantastic. He's celebrating 10 out of 10. Rob Smith, also a 10 out of 10. Lots of them tonight. Ian Bruce is congratulating the other 10 out of 10s. And Helen is saying third in a row, get in. 10 out of 10 for Helen. Fantastic, Helen. Congratulations. Graham Fraser, despite his dropping out signal, managed a 10 out of 10 as well. Benny Fries celebrating a 10 out of 10. Congratulations, Benny. Did I miss anyone else? Still celebrations going on. Fantastic. Jerry Miller is saying congratulations, all you 10 out of 10s. Graham Fraser is saying I'm visiting Tilvari next week. They are definitely in production 10. Like I say, the reason I say about is that if you'd said 10 or 11, you'd have been right in both cases. Chris Pollock is saying, I don't know, I am picky, but on my Glenallachie 10-year-old cask strength, it says batch 11. Oh, wow. So it could be that batch 11 is very, very recently out there. Still absolutely valid. Had myself covered there. Just the same as there are potentially 11T distilleries, right? So it could have been an answer both ways around. So take it, Chris. You've still got it absolutely right. Nothing changes. Seb K saying, bad skills for me on the quiz, but the joy of tonight was cracking the Ardna Midgie, and I'm loving it in all the warm barfly community. Fantastic, Seb. I'm glad you're enjoying the Midgie. I've still got a wee drop of my Midgie left. Pedro is saying that was a tough quiz, Aquavite. Love it. Pedro, I hope you did quite well despite it. Thank you all so much. Wonderful. Oh my goodness, 2 hours 45. Listen, that's a wee bit better than I could have. I am surrounded by bottles. I've got maybe, I don't know, 10 bottles over here. I've got 4 bottles over here. I think up on screen tonight, I've more than 20 bottles have been held up and displayed onto the camera tonight. What that means is that this, despite everything, we're working together to try and fathom where there are still producers bringing good quality, good value, interesting whiskies that we can get excited about. And when we get excited about it and we shout about it and we celebrate it and we buy it and share it and they make a success out of it, surely that encourages other people to follow in the same direction. I hope that that's the case, at least. Jimmy Legg is, Per Christensen gifted 10 Aquavite memberships. I hope I picked that up earlier, Per. Thank you very much for your generosity. And Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram to say, oh my, I almost forgot a super chat. That would have sucked. Love you all. Jimmy, there's no reason for that to ever suck. It's just wonderful to have your company. The super chats are a very generous and graciously, I hope graciously received bonus. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Cheers to you and cheers to Angie as well. Definitely picked the right one up. That is the Midgie. Super outdoors whiskey, Fastcraft Aquavite. You managed to keep the vPub exactly within one window moon phase for me. It appeared at the beginning of my sight and is now gone off out of sight. Thanks and good night. Thanks, Klaus. Jerry Miller is saying, thank you, Roy. Good night. Tommy Elmer is saying, good night. See you all again. Hope to see you in Scotland someday, Tom. That would be amazing to see you in Scotland one day. I'd love to welcome you here, buddy. The man from Alaska, I've met him in Texas, not welcomed him in Scotland yet. Jimmy Legg is saying, had to fill in for no Wook tonight. Aquavite, Jimmy, fantastic. Thank you for being here, buddy, always. Been here since the beginning, almost the beginning, from very early at least. Benny Fries has bought me a wee dram to say, I'll never participate in a quiz again. I like the thought about stopping a career when peaking. So because of his 10 out of 10, the job is done. He's never going to need to stay and do it again. Benny, Jimmy Legg, thank you both for your generous drams. Cheers to you both. Right. We're going to draw things to a close. We're going to wish you all a very good week. I don't know what you're doing at the weekend. Some of you will be excited about football. Most of you not. Hopefully, whatever you're doing, you'll be able to hold a glass of something that is bringing you value. It doesn't need to be cheap, just something that you feel glad to have purchased, something that you feel is bringing good value for money. And I hope in the future there's more of it for all of us to enjoy. Hey, I'm going to raise this glass and remind you all that you're very dearly loved and look forward to hanging out with you next week for, well, there's another 3 vPubs left before the summer break. But aye, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you then. Until then, slant your barflies. Thank you all so much.